A night in with MauLer and the drinker, getting trashed with the web screen thinkers. A cheap night cause I'm feeling kinda thrifty, got a 10-pack of beers and a bottle of whiskey. Hop off the cork, have a glass of wine, as they'll say, I'll be fine. Trouble walking in a straight line, but pour me a Pinot Noir. It's open bar with our hosts, MauLer and the critical drinker.
What is up, you lovely people? Hello.
Hello. How is everybody?
Well, I don't know about you, MauLer. I'm feeling pretty good today.
Feeling jazzed, are we?
I am. Yeah, I'm feeling invigorated after watching the first piece of good Star Wars content in quite some time. So yeah, we'll get into that on the stream for sure.
And a lot of people think we're joking until maybe an hour where it sets in.
It is not April 1st. This isn't a joke. This is actually really good. But yeah, we'll give that its time. But yeah, man, I am pumped to be here for Open Bar 141, and welcome to everybody who's watching this. Great to have you all join us. And I think probably, as we usually do, let's learn a little bit about, in this case, what will it be, 1941, if it's Open Bar 141. Do you want to learn some pointless facts about that year?
I'd love to.
I thought you might, yeah. One of these days you'll be like, no, I don't actually. Just shut up.
What really happened in the 40s? Come on, nothing.
Well, there's stuff, yeah. Well,
nothing.
In 1941, we actually got the world's very first fully automatic, programmable, Turing-complete computer. It was actually made by Konrad Zuse, which was actually pretty cool. That was the very first time we got a programmable computer. We also invented aerosol cans in that year for some reason. So, yay, great. You could start graffitiing things, and, you know, the world was never the same after that.
That's cute, man. The origin of our AI overlords. That's where it all began, you know?
Yeah. We also got the first ever public color television, which was broadcast. It was in the UK as well, because, you know, we're pretty good at inventing stuff here in this country. You know, you're welcome, world. So color TV, that was us. And it was John Logie Baird who did that, and he's a Scottish guy. So, you know, again, you're welcome.
Take the credit. It's fair.
Yeah, we also got the first jet engine flight took place in 1941, so which is kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
I imagine they started using them for war pretty quickly after that, because, you know, you can go like twice as fast as a propeller-driven plane, which is probably quite useful.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, in the world of movie making, what did we have here? Gone with the Wind goes into general release in the United States. It'd been released the previous year, but it was like very limited, like roadshow kind of pictures style. This was the first time that it got a wide release, so it went on to obviously become one of the most successful movies of all time. It's it sold an estimated 60 million tickets in that year alone, which was doubly impressive for a time when not that many people were going to the cinemas. And when you adjust for inflation and you count the fact that it's been re-released a few times, it's actually the highest grossing domestic film of all time, with total ticket receipts of 1.8 billion, which is pretty neat. And that's domestic.
Well,
which is
say, man? Yeah.
Kind of impressive. It was also the year that gave us Citizen Kane, which, you know, beloved by pretentious film nerds everywhere. And what else did we have? The Maltese Falcon as well came out that same year. Again, another classic of the what would you even call it? The noir genre.
Boring. When's the Marvel universe start? Is that 1941?
Well, that'd be around the time that Captain America was created. So let's
we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay.
Also, yeah, just for reference, the biggest movie of the year was Sergeant York from Warner Brothers. That was just over $6 million that made. So there you go. There's some pointless information about 1941. But
wonderful.
That's enough of that nonsense. Let's bring in our panel so we can talk about stuff and things. How does that sound?
All right, fine.
All right. Well, welcome aboard the Little Platoon and the Angry Badger. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
Good to have you back, as always.
Good to be back.
We've also got the Despot of Antrim joining us shortly. He's just doing some other stuff before he gets here, so he'll be slightly late. But that is okay. We'll be sure to make fun of him when he does arrive. I think that's the best way. Yes. Anyway, so I'm just going to jump right in, guys, because I did really want to talk about this. I just got done watching the latest block of 3 episodes of Andor, and holy shit, this show was fucking brilliant. Wow, I think everything that I'd been struggling with a little bit with Andor over the past really season and a half, the slow burn and so on, and maybe the methodical nature of it, and the fact that some of the characters could be a little bit too intellectualized. It all kind of coalesced into this episode. This was the payoff to so much of the things that had been set up over the past 2 seasons, and wow, was it good. I think we're probably in agreement here that episode 8 is some of the best Star Wars that we've ever seen on TV, for sure.
Since the OT, if your tweet is to be believed.
I think if I was to compare this in terms of writing quality, direction, performances to the prequels, I'd probably put this above it.
I would say hard for me to do.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, obviously, the prequels have got spectacle and they've got the recognizable characters and they've got the melodrama, but this was like, this stood on the quality of the writing and the performances alone. The tension building, the inevitability of what was going to happen, all of it was superbly done. I just don't think they could have done a better job with it. And it's, I'm Scottish and I'm old as fuck. And it takes a lot for me to feel actual human emotions anymore. But this episode made me do it. It got me pretty hard. And I just think it's really fucking impressive. Star Wars is like all grown up in this. And I know people are going to shit on it and say like, well, it's not real Star Wars and it's too boring and it's too intellectualized. I think you're kind of missing what they're doing here, if that's the case, and you're really missing out on a great TV experience.
It is slightly frustrating, like, for this of all things to be called not true Star Wars compared to all of the slop that we've had. This is the one that gets branded with that label.
You don't see that criticism for a lot of the Disney stuff, even though we absolutely all consider it non-canon, right? Like, no one thinks of the sequel trilogy at this point as true Star Wars, but you don't really see that criticism for those. People saying like, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. TFA truly felt like Star Wars to a lot of people, but holy fuck, it's got nothing on this in terms of meaning.
Yeah.
Which is fine. If that's what Star Wars has become, which is that if Andor isn't Star Wars, that is fine. In which case, I'm not a Star Wars fan anymore, as I think I said yesterday. And people can just go around and watch The Mandalorian and Grogu when that comes out next year. If that's what you want Star Wars to be, then you're welcome to it. But this, I think, it's basically everything you just said. It shows what you can achieve if you actually take one of the greatest cinematic achievements in the history of film, and you apply a brain to it, and someone who actually very much cares about creating the world, fleshing that world out with completely believable characters, showing how it works, who lives there, what their values are, why they all do the things that they do. You approach it like you approach any work of high art, and lo and behold, you get high art as a response. It's not that hard to do. You could fault Disney for giving this much money to the show, and because it's not a sellable proposition, nobody likes or particularly remembers the main character. That's fair enough. You can say, why did you give evidently the most talented creator you've got working for you a Disney Plus show featuring a character from a spin-off, as opposed to a film which will get bums on seats where you're allowed to use a lot more recognizable canon and lore relevant stuff, and you can get more lightsabers and lasers since that's what people want. I'm up for that as a criticism of Disney's approach, but the fact that he's been, like, Tony Gilroy's been able to take what was on paper the least sellable prospect in all of Star Wars and turn it into the best of anything that Disney has put out is really a testament to how clever and just how good he is at his job. More of that would be nice.
I'd say something worth keeping in mind on that front is that we may have in that alternate universe where, let's say, Gilroy was put in charge of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes, it would be better, but what if he was able to make Andor this strong because Disney were kind of like, whatever, it's Andor.
Well, ideally,
this is the thing. Like, Disney didn't just write this off, right, as like a cheap, like, here's like a shoestring budget and good luck to you. Like, they pumped a shitload of money into this. So, to their credit, if nothing else, they did believe in it, and they did give it the resources it needed to have a fully realized vision, because it's all up there on screen. The sets, the costumes, everything, the world that you see, it's like a movie. Like, I can't fault the production values of any of this. There's no janky CGI. It never looks cheap. It never looks like they cut corners on anything. It's a sumptuous show, just from a purely visual point of view, if nothing else.
Well, and also to the criticism of that it didn't feel like Star Wars, because often it didn't, and you could have put it in any other thing because the story was good, but I prefer more Star Wars setting, more aliens, things like that. That being said, it does start to feel more like it lives in that world. And by the last 3 episodes, when we're introduced to a certain character where they basically tie it back into that it's all the Force, and that everything Andor, that everything Cassian has done, he's been guided, and that maybe he's there for a reason. And they do bring it back into the Star Wars universe. Which is, I do think you need the Force.
Yeah, there's attempts with it. It's not too intrusive to the point where you're like, oh, okay, it was all of this was just the will of the Force or whatever. Like, it's not hokey. It's just like another perspective on all of this. And, you're free to take what you will from that. But it's still very much grounded in human decisions, human frailties, corruption, people fighting for what they believe in, and in some cases sacrificing everything for it.
Because it does still go to Rogue One, where they're saying, may the Force be with you, and having that. And so it's starting to feel more like it's connecting to that wider world, which is what I wanted.
Well, you get lots, there's lots of scenes now on Coruscant, in the Senate and so on. Like, so there's that real feel of like, this is now a galactic spanning event.
Not Tatooine all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Not just Tatooine with the volume screen and all the usual.
That volume.
Tidy. I feel like I understand the state of the galaxy, the state of the world in Andor, because it puts some fucking effort into explaining it, and it actually makes it feel real and lived in and believable. The decisions that people make seem like the kind of decisions that adults would make. And I don't know, man. There's a crazy alternate universe where the sequel trilogy didn't happen, and literally they led with Andor. It's like, hey, this is the first new show that we're going to give you that starts to build up this new world. It's going to build up to the events of A New Hope, and it fills in some of the blanks there. And it would just be like, wow, Star Wars has now grown up. It went from the melodramatic, slightly campy, like 1970s original trilogy, to the prequels, which were just CGI overload and just like all the excesses of the early 2000s, George Lucas, to this, which is very grounded, very mature, very intelligent. And this is like your new approach to Star Wars, but it's absolutely doing credit to the timeline of Star Wars. It doesn't counteract anything. It doesn't overwrite things. It slots perfectly into the timeline.
So can we get this with like super compelling characters that I like, and forgive me, lightsabers and force powers? Just a little bit. One character, just a little bit. But also the production and the writing and the quality.
It's the question of what Gilroy could do, I suppose, if you just said, right, make us a Star Wars movie in the vein of
the man entertained bringing in Vader and Palpatine and said no. Like, that is what I can't believe, that kind of restraint. Do you think I would have said no?
He could handle it.
I kept expecting some kind of appearance of Palpatine, even if it was on a hologram.
There was one scene in particular when I thought I would not have objected to seeing old Creamy Sheev in this particular scene, because it kind of suits him. But the fact that he turned it down meant that means you have complete confidence in the world that you're building and the characters that you're creating in their place. You're not having to rely on these callbacks. You're not having to rely on characters that, like, in the same way that Obi-Wan Kenobi tried to do that when it was just like absolute dog shit tier story, and throwing in random recognizable faces, even though they don't really attach to the characters they used to play anymore, just in order to get people to point at the screen and clap. It's the complete opposite approach to that, and that's not coincidentally why this world feels so much more detailed and real and believable and fundamentally loved than all of that, because it's not relying on somebody else's good work. It's taking deliberately low stakes, like low recognition aspects, world states, planets, people, and it's saying we can turn this into the next great big thing. We don't have to rely on the great work that other people have done before us. It's just wonderful to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, we're not going to get any more. So, like, you get 3 more episodes, and that's that. Because it's obviously there's some realities we got to go over here. Like, this is not going to be hyper engaged with. It's not going to blow up. It'll get some attention critically. This episode 8 specifically, already has caught some eyes, and more people are going to get recommended through word of mouth on it. But you know, like the course is already set. We've got a lot of shows and movies coming that are made by people who are absolutely not the team that made this.
This is the problem, isn't it? Like, Disney will learn the wrong or the worst possible lessons from this, where it's like, we pumped $600 million into these 2 seasons. We gave you your big, sumptuous, intelligent, grounded, gritty Star Wars, and nobody watched it. It was a complete financial bomb for us. So what's the point? Let's get back to, jangle those keys. Look at that recognizable thing that you remember from the OT. Like, that's all it's going to be. No,
it's a frustrating thing as well, because Star Wars had this massive old expanded universe where loads and loads of people did a huge amount of work, largely on their own back, creating exactly the world that Andor is now trying to create and the stories that it's trying to tell. Immensely varied. That's one of them, the main reasons the galaxy feels so rich. It's not just the stuff that George Lucas did. He set sort of the groundwork that other people took away and made into this massively populated thing with immense variety in it. The Gorman massacre in Andor is based off of part of, I think, an old expanded. It might even be Dave Filoni canon, isn't it? The Tarkin massacre. It's actually
Lucas canon originally. There's a deleted scene called the Delegation of 2000 that has like Padme and the Gorman senator talking about the original massacre by Tarkin, who's the Republic officer at the time, and it's just like he cut it, but it was supposed to show that even then they were challenging Palpatine's grasp on power. And then that got adapted. It's an arc in Rebels that then got a little retconned. So
inevitably, the point to be made about that is that when people say it's frustrating, it's not Star Wars. It's just like a generic sci-fi show with a Star Wars skin suit on it. The main story arc in this season is entirely based around part of the old canon of Star Wars. It's looking at an event featuring a character that people do know, Tarkin, and it's saying, what would the people of that planet do after that? Like, what does that say about the nature of rebellion? How would the galaxy respond to the Empire when the Empire's chief officers are the kinds of people who are responsible for these past atrocities? What it's doing, and Gilroy said he's not what he would call himself like a proper like AAA Star Wars fan. He's had to go and do a lot of research. Heaven forbid anybody should have to do any of that.
At least
He's looked at the lore and the canon, and he said, there is immense story potential here, so I'm going to take this bit of it and I'm going to flesh it out. It's one of the most Star Wars shows of all the Star Wars shows, if you want to judge by fidelity to the wider expanded universe and the ability to plumb all that storytelling potential that the galaxy has. We don't see it from something like Ahsoka, which is just, well, there's some lightsabers, there's Dave Filoni's favorite pinup doll, and some, I don't know, fuck it, Nazi zombie stormtroopers or something, who knows? We'll just do whatever for that. It's just not comparable. But yet that doesn't get branded with the label not Star Wars in the way that Andor does.
But compare the writing for Thrawn with the writing for Partagaz.
Oh, God, yeah.
Partagaz is a nobody in terms of, like, what fans can't get, like, oh my God, look, it's Partagaz. But, like, brand new guy, and just through dialogue and performance, I already care immensely about any scene he's a part of in terms of representing the competency of the ISB, versus Thrawn, who I'm like, oh Jesus, here we go. What's he gonna say this time?
This is like, what I thought they'd do. Competently take from the canon.
Well, exactly. Everybody was waiting in hopes that Thrawn would represent the arrival of competency, but he's been written by Filoni.
Yeah, well, exactly. When the guy who's charged with bringing him to the screen doesn't have anything even resembling competency, like, that's never going to happen.
Oh, and go back and listen to Heir to the Empire, the 25th edition unabridged audiobook. Thrawn is literally one of the greatest characters ever, is written by Timothy Zahn, and just a shadow of his former self.
But, like, this is what I feel we have been talking about for fucking what feels like a decade now, is that someone like a Partagaz is not a key jangle. He is a character, but he's so good at this point that if he turned up in a scene, like say they kidnapped a very important member of the ISB or something, we're like, who is it? And he's got a bag over his head, and Luthen takes the bag off and his Partagaz. I'd be like, oh shit, and it's like, oh, that's kind of the reaction they want out of me for showing Thrawn. I'm supposed to go, oh shit, but instead I'm just like, oh fuck.
Well, we've talked about this before, like how Star Wars used to reference classic literature or like the westerns and like fantasy adventures, that sort of thing. Nowadays, it just references itself, and it can literally only survive by cannibalizing the memory of much better times, much better characters, like wheeling out all these old actors to play their roles again. It's pathetic. It's just an Ouroboros of shit, basically, just constantly eating itself. This has the balls to just say, no, we're just going to create some new characters that are actually interesting, played by really fucking good actors, that are well written, that are actually compelling to watch on screen, and you would actually be excited to see certain ones go head to head with each other. Imagine that. Imagine creating new stuff that's actually interesting, that people actually care about.
And doing as
In
much
Star
work for the
Wars.
villains as the heroes as well, which is one of the most compelling things about this entire show, is that you have the most competent and well-rounded villains as well as the heroes. It's not, in a way, and sort of similarly with season 1, Cassian Andor is one of the least interesting things about his own show.
I was more
is a
interested
slightly
in Daedra and
strange thing.
Cyril.
It's exactly. It's everything that goes on around him, but showing like the kinds of people who work for the Empire and why, and showing them being good at their jobs, and showing them have their own kind of weird, perverse values and morals and sets of priorities. They're not just these stupid comic book villains. Almost directly comparable, I think, when you have the scene in Andor where Partagaz is kind of interrogating his lower officers in the ISB, and one of them almost impertinently responds with quite an out there opinion. Partagaz says, "Thank you, everyone, for reminding us what this room is supposed to be for," which is just a wonderful little line of dialogue. Compare it with Kylo Ren. If someone answers back, he just force chokes them into the fucking ceiling. It's just
when they give him,
and then starts
really
lightsabering the nearest computer console
They're
while
not
screaming with rage.
all supposed to be evil. Remember that the vast majority of the Empire were loyal Republic soldiers and officers and all that, and that truly thought that when after the war they had just fought with the Separatists, that no, absolutely this is the right thing to do, and then like Cyril thought they were just, and then over time you start thinking maybe this isn't. This
is the fascinating insight that this show has always provided, right? It's the banality of evil, and the fact that all these people, throughout all of human history, right? The people that were the members of the most depraved regimes and the most awful repressive dictatorships in all of human history, they were all still people. They had personal lives. They went home. They had to eat, sleep, shit like any other person. And that's the reality of it. How do you get people like that who are rational human beings to be part of this regime, be part of this galactic empire? It's because they believe that they're doing the right thing, or they're part of the machine. They have to answer to people. They've all got their own little ambitions, their own things that they hope for themselves. All of this stuff makes it so human and believable and adult. And it's stuff that the sequel trilogy could never do, the Dave Filoni shows could never do, because they don't understand how to write actual intelligent human beings. This show does it, and it does it so fucking well. It's so frustrating that it doesn't even get the attention it deserves.
There's so many angles to the lack of cartoonery when it comes to the Empire in this, and it feels like an obvious lesson that they've learned wrong in a lot of Disney stuff of but they are evil. Let's clown on them, make fun of them, fuck them, they're evil. Look at them, they're so cartoonishly. When it's don't you think it's more effective when they are effective, like the Empire, when they can get the job done? They're actually scary. This episode blew me away in terms of I forgot for a moment that I haven't taken stormtroopers seriously in forever, it feels. But this episode's oh fuck!
Watching them
oh shit!
Watching them march into that plaza and just hem people in like cattle, and just watching that build up, knowing what's coming, it makes them intimidating. It makes them this terrifying force.
Cackling villains, the rebellion would have happened in a few years. The whole point is that they're not all evil, that it ramped up slowly and in pockets, and then eventually it's a consistent, but a lot of them are just doing their job, and as long as you didn't do anything wrong, you weren't caught. And so that's why it's a struggle for the rebellion to get people to believe them.
And there is a justifiable need for the Empire to do this. They're not doing this massacre because they want to or anything.
There were people shooting.
Enjoy killing. They're doing it because they need the resources of this planet. They've tried they even had a line of dialogue, I think, from Partagast, who says, that Krennic had his top scientists working for the past year or two trying to find another way to synthesize this material they need for the Death Star. Any other way that would avoid them having to take control and roll in on this planet, and they couldn't do it.
And not because they felt bad. They just didn't want to do the resources. But
well, it's another conversation I've seen online. People have been asking, which it's unfortunate, but this is what happens. So people are saying this was stupid by the Empire. They should have just taken it anyway. Instead of doing all this rigmarole over years, they should have just gone in and taken all the shit. And it's if you remember, this is why Arc 1 it's not useless. I just wish it were a bit, I don't know, more spicy in terms of pacing. But they go over how this mining operation on Gorman is going to devastate the planet,
which is popular.
Yes, and
it's a destination.
there's a lot of value to it. So it's like, so we've watched now over these 9 episodes of them very meticulously construct a series of events. As Dedra said, we need a resistance group to do exactly what is needed to do, so that we can sell a particular story, which they've had journalists going constantly in and out here, and all those reports they had, the way they manipulated the barricades, all of the prep of different soldiers, and then of course, because we had a little chat about this before we went streaming, but man, that moment where it's like, you get these boys in line. He's like, oh yeah, but they are a bit green, like they're, and he's like, are we having a problem? It's just like, that is what they're designed for. Then send them out into this crowd. He's just like, no, we can't do that. Like, we know exactly what's going to happen, and just watching it all happen systematically, but also compartmentalizing the information within the Empire, right? Like, only so much can be known by so many people to keep the variables as low as possible to control the situation. And yeah, the man kicking it all off with a sniper shooting one of their own men.
Yeah,
Kind of shot her
Oh, you
around the
knew
world.
they were going to have to do something like that to provoke the others into fighting back, because I guess they were perhaps counting on someone in the crowd either shooting at them or hitting them with a Molotov cocktail or something like that, or even,
And that's the thing. Those
it was the idea, right?
moments,
It's like sending the grunts out first while the crowd were sort of very angrily but individually chanting and like waving sticks around. Is like the hope, obviously, is you send the troops out and the crowd will just turn on them. But it's when the crowd will start singing in unison, like the old patriotic song, that things need to be escalated further, because the crowd might not have done that because the crowd had found that kind of unity that then had to be shattered by effectively a false flag.
What did you think of Gorman? Because I was jokingly calling it Planet France, where everyone is literally sounds like they're speaking French, as opposed to an
really,
alien planet.
Yeah.
Something, because it very much looks like World War II France, and it's just so on the nose, as opposed to something that could be compared to it. You know what I'm saying?
I've heard comparisons that it's based on like a sort of World War II French resistance movie.
What I got from it.
I could totally get that, and
I can't take seriously those kinds of criticisms though, in terms of like it's too on the nose. The fucking Empire is on the nose, okay? Like, we know exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
It's not like anyone says the Empire's too on the nose. Like, no, they're fine. They're fine. The way they work is fine. And
I guess
just
like
saying
with the
Grand
Empire
Galaxy, they spoke
the thing
French.
you can say for the Empire is they don't stormtroopers have that very, very unique and distinct aesthetic, and like the Imperial uniforms are quite obviously sui generis. They're not too obviously doing like Nazi uniforms all the time, even though we know that's kind of what they're representing.
And
but the
branched out.
stormtroopers, look like something else. They branch out with the Gormanites. It was quite French, and I find it difficult to take the French, as most Englishmen do. But I found myself sympathizing with them. And it's like it's kind of there's bits of like World War II French resistance stuff, but there's also, and the thing that makes Andor sort of endlessly fascinating as a subject of study is that there's quite a lot of French Revolution stuff that goes in there as well. When you get the divide in the factions between like the Montagnard faction of the younger radicals, and then the more establishment, peaceful older guard who are trying to preach the virtues of pacifistic non-resistance to the new dictatorial regime. Like, there's a huge amount of study of revolutions that goes into making Andor's world so very, very compelling, and like most of it comes out during particularly those 2 episodes, 7 and 8, and with that really tragic end as well for the older pacifist character who's just sort of been driven to that point.
Well, who ultimately, like, he certainly redeems himself by saving Andor, but like he everything he'd fought for just fell apart in that episode.
MauLer, were you gonna? I was because there's something about that. Yeah,
I was just gonna say on the French note. As far as I'm aware, it is an original language, just using French intonations. And,
really? I
can't
tell.
Right.
It sounded like that. The thing is that there's a bunch of species in the galaxy that they could have used. There's a whole bunch of different cultures, and just go straight to World War II French. Was like, okay.
My assumption was watching it, it's like, okay, with the amount of effort that's gone into this show and the amount of attention to detail, they will not actually just be using French. It must be some kind of made up language that loosely is based on it or something.
Thank you, MauLer. I didn't know that.
Well, and they tried to encourage the actors to speak it to each other between scenes as well, which apparently they did, which is like, oh, that's really fucking cool.
Well, again, it sounds great because they sound so fluent in it. Like, it seems to come so naturally.
They did have a lot of French actors because they were going to be using it. Do you know what I mean? Like, Welsh has the same thing, bunch of accents do, where there's particular sounds that get made, and they wanted to transfuse those sounds into their new language that they were making. So
it was a fashion planet. I get it.
I do love I love the idea of like it being a Welsh planet, though.
Yeah, dude.
Gonna need my protocol droid for translation.
Everyone would have. That'd be mandatory.
3PO speaks everything. He does not speak Welsh.
It's like even the locals can't understand each other. It's like, I don't know what I'm saying.
Isn't this a problem that we're seeing a couple where studios are starting to release things that, I mean, obviously I'm not comparing this to Thunderbolts or Skeleton Crew. I'm just saying things are starting to not be horrible to outright really good, and people are so apathetic that they're not going to give it a shot across the board.
Brand damage is a big issue, I think.
Yeah.
And with Star Wars, it's never been more evident. You know, we talked about this before with Skeleton Crew, where it's not offensively bad or anything. It's actually quite a charming little fun kids adventure show. I think if the brand had been stronger, I think it would have had a lot of success. It's perfectly fine.
It is funny to think that the Andor is actually being held back by the franchise it's a part of. Like Star Wars, just the label is the millstone that's drowning it. But I said, if there is, like, maybe at one point in the very far future, the movies become really successful again, and everybody starts loving Star Wars because the films are good. And to be clear, the films have to be good for this franchise to come back. It's a cinematic franchise first. But if that did happen, I suspect people will start looking back at Andor and thinking, you know what, that was a really, really good show, and it laid the groundwork for a lot of the stuff we now enjoy. But as long as the films continue to be absolute dog shit, you will still get a predominant strain of thought, which is Star Wars is dead, Star Wars is shit, Star Wars is pointless, it's dead to me, I've got nothing to do with it anymore, and anyway, this isn't Star Wars, why should I care? Disney sucks, my identity is hating Disney, so I have to hate the show, etc., etc., etc.
All roads lead to Jake Skywalker. Sorry, that's my favorite.
Also that, yeah.
I think it's frustrating that they'll probably never repeat this experiment again. Like the $650 million that they pumped into doing these 2 seasons, that is the kind of money like that they could have made 2 really good or really big movies for the cost of this. They will not make that kind of investment again in a TV show. I mean, this was just absurd, particularly with like a relatively obscure character and like the very grounded mature aesthetic of the whole thing. That's been proven to not be financially viable for them, and it's such a shame because I don't know, I feel like in a way we've played into it as well, and not without due cause, to be fair, because like there was anticipation for season 2 of Andor, and then they started in the worst possible way with, as Chris Gore said, those first 3 episodes, they were without doubt the worst of the season. And they were a terrible way to start the new season of Andor, and they're not representative of the quality of the rest of the show, but that's what we got. And so right out the gate it stumbled, and it was really hard then to get enthused about watching more of it.
Well, so because I saw one of the replies to your tweet, Drinker, being like, this is the same guy who said Star Wars is dead, laugh my ass off, like trying to point out your hypocrisy. And I saw that and I was like, it is though. Like,
yeah, and that's why no one's watching this fucking show.
Like that all matches. It was never that Star Wars could absolutely never, under any circumstances, produce a story that is of any value. It's that Star Wars as brand is fucked. And it's funny, you don't need us to tell you. Disney will. Look at the release schedule for everything. It's completely fucked up because they're panicking.
Well, like Star Trek is dead, but like Picard season 3, you can get something good in a dead thing. Star Wars, but it doesn't Disney might be dead, but it's something. Proof of concept.
Yeah. And I mean, if you had Andor level quality for a whole bunch of movies, a load of TV shows, like Star Wars the heartbeat would come back more than likely, but that's just not going to happen. The creative director, isn't that his role now, Filoni?
Yep.
We're fucked.
Yeah.
He's got his thumb in everything, his finger in everything.
Retard in chief, I think, is his official job title. More.
And his obsession with Ahsoka means that she's just going to pop up in fucking everything. And it gets increasingly frustrating.
The canon that Little Platoon is referencing, like right now, we should be doing the Heir to the Empire with Thrawn and Luke and all of that, but Ahsoka's going to do that because that's his baby. The one that George wanted to kill off, and he talked him out of it.
Didn't he invented time travel as an excuse to save her from death?
World between worlds.
Yeah. It's just.
Yeah, and Asajj Ventress is back now and just teleported with Night Sister magic 10 years into that's the Tales of the Underworld. So it's just like, come on, guys.
This entire franchise is going to be studied. Like in decades to come, it will be a object lesson for university students everywhere. Like this is how you destroy a brand. This is like the worst possible way to manage an IP. And it's just through incompetence. More than anything else, just incompetent people promoted to positions that they don't deserve. It's incredible. It really is.
In the most optimistic scenario, maybe, because lots of creators do also like to be feted and positively reviewed by critics, because everybody has a bit of an ego. there's always a slim chance that the reception Andor has got from people that people trust, critics that people trust, will inspire some better writing from people who do work after them. There's a chance that Dave Filoni might want someone somewhere to say, you know what, the quality of this Ahsoka show was actually quite good. So he might be tempted to try and up his game. Like it's the great thing about great works of art. They can inspire other people to try and improve in their own writing and their own abilities. Maybe that will happen and we'll get some more intelligent stuff because it's shown that there is space for it in Star Wars. But I don't really see him having the capability to do that.
There's an interesting point made here as well by Intent Matters. With Andor being so grounded, imagine how impactful it would be if we saw just a single Jedi now. Seeing a lightsaber in Andor would make me shiver with its potential. Disney Star Wars made Jedis and lightsabers boring. I think
Vader. That's Vader at the end of Rogue One, literally.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, kind of, yeah. And it's like, it does tie into this point of like, it should be able to stand on more than just lightsabers and key jangling and the Force and all that crap. But, to see it actually happen, to see one instance of it would be super impactful in a show like this because it does feel so grounded and we've been so starved of it in this show. It's like if it was employed correctly, it could potentially be really well done.
Give him Dawn of the Jedi. Give him the first Jedi, the Force users who then end up splitting on using the light side and the dark side. Game of Thrones style, but it's Star Wars. Like that's all right for like back and forth and good dialogue and early Republic stuff, but just give them something and then make it intelligent. It doesn't have to turn your brain off just because there's Force powers and lightsabers.
Or even the New Republic stuff. I mean, it's the slightly strange thing is that, when you've seen what Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have been doing with the New Republic stuff, so the stuff set in sort of the Mandalorian time era and then the Ahsoka time era as well, they've been doing these hints that what they're trying to portray as the New Republic sort of succumbing to some of the same problems and faults that brought the Empire down. The replicating the worst features of the Ancien regime. It's one of the only good episodes of The Mandalorian, actually, is that one that's set on Coruscant with the ex-Imperial officers going through that sort of rehabilitation program. You can do a lot of the same thematic storytelling that Andor covers in that time period. It's just that we gave that time period to the people least able to do it.
It makes me despise the sequels even more now because when I think about what kind of sacrifices and planning and immense efforts by people that you see in a show like this to make the rebellion even happen, to even light that fire that was going to perhaps challenge the Empire at some point and ultimately win. And then it all gets given over to a bunch of fucking retards who all get killed by a mega Death Star in like Force Awakens, and then the First Order is just in charge of everything again. Fuck off, Disney. With your bullshit.
The New Republic took a long time to decline into anything remotely close to that, and then the Yu Zhang Vong came in. It was a whole nother story. So they made him incompetent right off the bat.
I do have to say this one as well from Dork Ritual. Holy fucking Cyril. Dedra straightening her tunic gave Spock / Wrath of Khan vibes. Absolutely, yeah. And KS2, whoa. All the things. I'm glad it's not getting normie attention because good Star Wars is finally for nerds again. I said what I said. I would rather it got normie attention or at least attention of the entire Star Wars fan base.
The big problem is Disney listened to engagement ratings and numbers, right? It's and Andor is unfortunately not going to be ticking big boxes. So, in a way, it's like that's the sad part. But we got it. It is what it. You try and look at it glass half full. It happened.
Could we talk a little bit about Cyril and his arc throughout the series, but also
one thing I just wanted to back what Badger said actually. So the thing about because I'm sympathetic to the idea. We make fun of it a bit here and there, but like the idea of having Jedi, having Sith, having lightsabers, blah blah blah. It's like on one hand, I want it appreciated that writing in Star Wars should be more than just seeing those elements. However, there is, as mentioned in that super chat earlier as well, there's like a combo meter that can apply when seeing some of your favorite fantasy elements plus amazing writing. Arguably, that is what the OT was. So in Andor, right, everything is so grounded to the point of you could watch it and have no like a lightsaber. What do you even like if you watch this on its own, you just be like, what the fuck are you even talking about? And some people consider that a major flaw with the show. It can't be considered Star Wars sort of thing. But if you now go to Rogue One, which to be fair, not defending significant portions of that film, I'd have to watch it again after seeing season 2 to know how it gets contextualized. But I mean, I've always had a huge soft spot for seeing all of these rebel soldiers. And then the smoke appears, and it's like that Vader guy, you only got one scene earlier who seemed very imposing, very strange, and then the lightsaber turns on. And it's like, what the fuck is that? And then just chopping through everybody with a choir, and they're all screaming. It's just like, you could argue that combo meter just fucking explodes when you keep it reserved and pull it out when it's needed. Don't take that.
I watched Rogue One last night. I enjoyed it far more than I ever did before, and that was only because I had seen all of that. Doesn't mean I love Cassie and all that, but yeah, it did make Rogue One hit harder, just because you know how much shit they had to go through to even get to troops in uniforms able to have a rebellion to send.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just having so much time without those elements can really make those elements fucking shine. And,
Vader shows up.
Everyone remembered from Rogue One, and it's like, well, yeah, because it made Vader terrifying. Not that he wasn't already, but in a different vein than we've often seen before.
Don't worry, MauLer. Obi-Wan Kenobi made its best effort to undo all that good work.
What an excellent comparison! You get spammed Vader in that show, and it's terrible. It's the worst thing ever. It's just like, please go away. What, remember he duels what's her name, Reva?
And she kind of holds her own against him, and he really has to work his ass off to beat her.
Well, to be fair, Drinker, she got stabbed through the chest and survived twice.
Like, fuck off, Disney. Fuck off with your retarded.
He doesn't even turn on his saber. He just dodges all her attacks and then takes her saber and stabs her with it. It's very embarrassing.
It's what I mean. Like, they made lightsabers just like a thing you can shrug off. They made stormtroopers idiots. They just destroyed every element that was foundational to what Star Wars was. From a world building, a balance point of view, a dramatic point of view, none of it mattered anymore.
And there's also been this proliferation of Jedi surviving the First Order, and each new one of those you introduce, the worse and pointless the Order 66 actually becomes in the end, right? It's like
the path.
Almost any character that gets introduced these days in any show who looks in any way mysterious, your first thought is, oh, I wonder if this is another Jedi who survived Order 66. Oh, it is, because Dave Filoni wrote it. Great.
They introduced it in Obi-Wan, and then in the Tales of the Underworld, they show it again of the path, the literal fucking Jedi Underground Railroad that is so famous that everyone knows that there's just this hidden underground way for Force sensitives and Jedi to escape. That shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, I as much as it's awful to watch on screen, like, I love the clinical brutality of Order 66 and the fact that it was so well orchestrated. Right, these Jedi trust the clone troopers all around them, like they are in positions of vulnerability all throughout the galaxy, and boom, they're just all wiped out. At the same time, they're picked off one by one.
Genocide. Like, you're seeing a genocide on screen, or whatever the space word for genocide is, but you're seeing a genocide on screen, and it's incredibly dramatic. The pathos in all of those scenes, and obviously the music does a huge amount of the storytelling as well, but it's an incredibly powerful moment that then gets cheapened every time someone comes back to it later, and then you get another flashback to another character who somehow escaped it, and then turns up again later, and then there's more lightsabers everywhere, even though at the time of A New Hope, the Jedi are a myth and their fire has gone out of the universe. But there are so many of them around now, it's almost impossible to see how that's the case.
Especially when you're writing a story where a little girl gets hit with a lightsaber in the actual building and she survives. You're like, what
and then again later
doing?
Someone in the chat said there was 10,000 Jedi. Yeah, some would have survived, but they would have been so far out of the core galaxy and they would have not been involved. And it would have been years after hearing the Empire fell. What? Some guy put together a Jedi Order?
Like, that seems a bit excessive.
10,000 to have the entire galaxy. I mean, back in the OG Republic, there's way more than 10,000.
Damn.
Well, and you've also got locked in with Yoda describing Luke as, like, we're at the point of the Last Jedi. It's like, well, if you've put a lock on that, then, they all kind of need to be dead. And that's the thing, right? There's still room to write those things. The way they've done it so far has been really silly.
Mm-hmm.
Played High Note says, I'm glad the panel likes Andor, but I've tried so many times to get into it and I just can't get past episode 6 of season 1. And no, I don't care about pew pew lightsabers and Jedis. I just don't connect with any of the characters. I mean, like, what can we say to that? I mean,
did you not? So are they saying they watched episode 6? Because that's the eye, right? In Aldhani, which
it says they can't get past it. So
I love that episode.
That's a heist episode. That's like
pretty... It's really good shit.
Yeah.
And then of course that's the meme of the miner who's, on the cusp of reaching all the diamonds. Because like my favorite arc is probably the prison one in season 1, though Aldhani is pretty close.
I wonder
Yeah,
whether
I guess we can't force people to like the characters. That's kind of subjective, but I don't know, man. I think at least surely the quality of the writing would shine through even then. I mean, I must admit, like, I like season 2 more than I liked season 1, for sure.
By the
I
way,
think
just to
more
go back to
happens.
the
Sorry.
the 10,000 Jedi, because you see people talking about it. That's one of the reasons why some people still didn't believe in the Force, because you would think you could just point to the HoloNet footage of all the Jedi lifting shit and all that. But like, some people just went their whole lives without even really seeing Jedi, because there were so few and they were only sent out, to specific planets for important reasons.
Well, and on that note, that's why the Rogue One moment's effective, because so many people wouldn't know who the fuck Vader is or what he does.
Right.
So seeing that is terrifying. That's why
Vader would have just been a shadowy enforcer figure that you would hear horror stories about of him. Like.
Yeah, on the previous question though, is obviously yes, you can't force people to like the characters. There's a line in season 2 episode, is it 7? I think it's 7, when things are starting to go a bit wrong for Luthen, and Luthen says, there are so many sort of rumors, so many stories, so many lies that I can't keep track of them anymore.
I love that.
I wonder
scene.
whether there's an element of that which is in play for at least part of the audience, because it is an incredibly complex narrative. There are a number of different sub stories going on. There's a bunch of characters who don't always seem to be acting in concert with each other. There's a lot to sort of keep track of. And especially over the course of quite a long, quite a slow-paced first season, if you don't immediately see where all of this is going, I can understand, I think, why some people might just think, well, it's such a time sink, and I'm not sure that the payoff is going to be worth it, so why would I bother? It's almost more of a problem with season 2, because in MauLer we were chatting about it last night, about whether or not you should even skip the entire first act, or they should have got rid of the first act of season 2, because it does take too long for what it's trying to achieve. And then you get a tighter, more fast-paced thing, which is beginning at the crux of the story. Everything focuses around Gorman. And maybe sort of applying that approach to season 1 as well, if you do structure it with a little bit more focus, a stronger central through line that tells people this is definitely leading somewhere and it's going to be worth seeing. Maybe it gets people out of that sort of funk that they can sometimes fall into. But to anyone who is still doubting it, I do really recommend rewatching it, even if you didn't like it the first time, because every time you rewatch Andor, there's something new to pick up on, and it makes more sense, obviously. Now you roughly know where it's going.
Yeah.
The more of the story you see,
watch.
the more at the beginning will sort of sync up and slot in, and you'll be like, oh, that's why that's doing that. I see, that sort of stuff.
Should people just watch the last 2 episodes or the last 3 episodes, and then if they found any enjoyment whatsoever, then go back and watch? Because
it's going to spoil a shitload for them if they do go.
Yeah, you'll feel some stuff, but you won't feel anywhere near as what you would if you got the full story.
Okay,
but
I will say I think you could probably skip the first 3 episodes of season 2. You're going to miss a bit of context for things, but if you're really on the fence about the show and you just want to get to the good stuff, but you need a bit of you need a bit of setup for it as well, you could probably skip those first 3 episodes, because they are clunky. They are that whole chase sequence with the TIE fighter was just so out of sync with the rest of Andor. I don't know where it came from. And the whole wedding thing was very slow paced. So I think you could probably skip over that and still understand enough that you could get into the rest of the season.
Yeah.
People say, do I really have to watch 6 or 7 episodes of something I don't like to get to the good stuff? Like my friend famously he stopped before the prison escape arc with Circus. I was like, but that's the best arc.
You know the thing that pisses me off though, particularly about those first 3 episodes, is the thing that became the sole focus for everyone was the attempted rape scene.
Yeah.
That became the thing that everyone talked about, and it was that, oh god, Star Wars has got rape in it now, and it's horrible, and that's the end for everyone. And that dominated the conversation to the point where people just didn't even want to engage with the show anymore, and any other nuance with the show was lost. And that's
I do wonder
annoying.
though how many of those people would ever have engaged with it. I mean, there's a couple of criticisms of Andor which I think came about because people who were kind of coming from the position that they never liked it and they didn't have the patience for it, so they weren't going to watch it, so they didn't really understand what they were talking about. There weren't very many easy criticisms of season 1 besides that it was boring. So the minute something superficially dramatic and controversial happens, everyone seizes on it and says, hey, look, see, this proves that Star Wars is dead, and it means I don't have to watch the show to validate my criticisms. I think there's a bit of laziness that comes into latching onto narrative stuff like that, and it's a shame. And I don't hold it against the show that it did it, because I think it was an incredibly powerful scene, and it was very important for where Bix ends up as a character as well. Like it's the starting point of her rediscovering who she is and reclaiming the power and agency that she finally retakes at the end of this most recent arc, or middle of this most recent arc. So I think that would always have been the criticism, just because there were a number of people who wanted to hate it and who didn't watch it, and so they just read the headline and thought, "Hey, finally, this absolves me of my responsibilities as a critic."
My criticism was just, I wish she hadn't have said the word rape. I wish she had said he tried to take me or take me against my, anything to add plausible deniability. So if you're watching it one way, you can infer, and if you're watching it another way, you can infer, because that's exactly what happens with Princess Leia in the slave outfit. Do you think she was telling story time to the troops, or the, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can infer a lot of bad things in the Twilight dancing girls, but when she
But it's
said
still
the
such a
word
weird
rape,
criticism to say that the word rape. You see children die on screen in Revenge of, not to relitigate the argument. Children do die on screen in
I
Revenge of the
understand.
Sith. It's not
Americans
just
make a
implied.
difference. Americans make a difference between sexual violence and regular violence, which is why we won't show nudity, but we'll show people's heads being blown apart. I'm not saying it's right, but we do make a distinction, and that's why people
Because like, I'm assuming,
saying
are you
that.
okay
And
with
also,
Mothma
yes.
saying genocide?
Because it's that same speech is said in Rebels very quickly. They're watching at the end, and she says massacre, and in modern vernacular she said genocide. And yeah, you could point out that was probably done just to invoke modern day things. It is what it is. I just want to point out, because people bring up the dead kids, that's very clearly because we have to show Anakin fall to the dark side, and what he does to achieve dark power.
Just
not
out of-
You can make it exactly the same argument. You need to see Bix has been traumatized by the guy who tortured her, and then
And you
when
see it.
another guy comes to inflict another kind of torture on her, she fights him off and defeats him.
And you see it. I have no problem with the scene.
She's not in fact
Also-
raped in that scene. In which
Correct.
case you're left in the slightly bizarre situation
Well,
where
I
a
gotta-
woman fighting off an attempted rapist is somehow worse than an actual genocide that you see.
Again, so I'm pointing out they should have used Star Wars vernacular and said, more old time. He tried to take me. That's all.
That's not even Star Wars vernacular. But well, and to back Platoon here, a lot of people are saying wrong. Their kids died off screens. Like, everyone's forgotten Revenge of the Sith. You watch a child get shot to death in that.
It's
film.
almost like, it's like 2 scenes later on. It's when Bail Organa arrives at the
And
Jedi
that-
Temple, and the clones
Jet
try to
Lucas,
ward him
that's
off, and then
George Lucas's
the
kid.
little
Yeah.
kid, and he gets shot. You see him get shot, so it's not just an implied.
And that's
death.
not even like, you
correct.
can't even argue that that's necessary for Anakin's arc. Which, by the way, just because you have a story reason for a thing to happen doesn't change the fact that it's there.
Again, I don't see the equating of the two. I know what you're trying to say, but
yeah, in a slightly related vein, how did you feel about Bail Organa saying, like, tear the shit out of this place to Mon Mothma?
well, you can guess. I'm going to say I wish he used a Star Wars swear instead of a real world one,
Well,
even if we have damn in hell.
I suppose it ties into the same question of well, should he have used a different word? Does it feel weird to see a word like shit used in Star Wars? I don't know. I'm curious to see what you guys think about it.
Didn't they? It's the big speech at the end of season 1 with, is it Marv's character, when she's after she's dead and she gives
She
that
wanted to say fuck the Empire. but she
I think
doesn't.
they were going to have her say fuck
They
the
were
Empire,
going
and
to,
then
right.
they changed that, and I probably would agree that maybe that was right to do, just because
Kark and Kriff are the F words in Star. So I'm saying they do have swear words specific to Star Wars that they've used in other
Right.
shows like Skeleton Crew. I was like, oh, they used the Star Wars thing. Okay. I don't give a fuck about swearing. It's just that Star Wars already has swears, and I prefer they stick to the already established canon. Yeah, it threw me out. When she said genocide, it threw me out because, again, I've already heard her do that speech in Rebels, which was supposed to be canon, and she said massacre. I don't care. I'm glad everyone enjoyed it, but those words were changed for a reason.
But then on the other hand, you have, the little kid in Phantom Menace say, that's totally Wizard Annie. Han Solo says, I'll see you in hell. It's never a cast iron rule that you can't use real world words in Star Wars, because otherwise no one would be speaking English.
Mhm.
Also, if I hear Dank Farrik one more time, I'm gonna fucking kill myself.
Yeah, what was that he used in Farscape? It was Frel, wasn't it? Frel, you.
Yeah, Dren and Frel.
Yeah.
Well, Frack would be the classic one, right? I do love Frack.
From Battlestar Galactica. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The one that was interesting to me in Farscape Drinkers, they had Mycrots, Ons, and they say solar days. Like they did their whole little time set too. I just thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah. But I think it was roughly comparable to our. It was just a different word for the same thing.
Minutes, hours, and days. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like they had 100 hours per day or anything crazy like that. I was going to do this one as well. Silver Slug Videos says, cheers, drinker. Shout out to my friend who's deployed. His name is Andrew. We befriended years ago in the army while setting up a tent in the dark, and he quoted, look in the trash compactor. There's something alive in here. Who knows what it was? Was it a scorpion or a snake or something? Well, either way. Yeah, big shout out to Andrew, who's deployed, presumably overseas. Hope he's keeping safe and comes home in one piece. So good stuff, man. Yeah. Question, thoughts on Cyril's end? I thought his switch to Cassian was jarring since he seemed past it. He should have taken a bolt from an Imperial in the square in sight of Dedra against the Empire's disorder.
No, fuck, no, Jesus. Okay, let's talk about Cyril then.
Yes, let's talk about him. What a fucking arc that man has had. Good lord.
Well, yeah, I mean, in just this one episode, he shot right up. He was already, as mentioned last week, I'm quite fond of Cyril's, like the idea for the character, but holy shit, the story got really rounded out and completed with episode 8. Which, yeah, I mean, spoilers, fellas. We're going to be talking through what happens.
Do you have, you've got some footage, I think, of Cyril coming to the realization of, oh my God, everything I've been fighting for the past couple of years has been a complete lie. My entire world is just falling apart around me.
Well, him and Daedra, my favorite characters.
Can do an abridged version, I guess, of just for anybody, because we can keep people who aren't watching the show up on the context. Cyril is like the attempt at the shows to give us a cog in the empire of how a person with good intentions can be an important part for the destructive, sort of horrifying elements of the Empire. Starting in season 1 as a member of a security bureau that picks up that Andor has killed the 2 fellas, if everyone remembers the opening scene. Obviously, he did it in self-defense, and then he had to mop up afterwards, sort of thing. And Cyril's whole issue with that is the injustice like that shouldn't just be casually allowed. And his superior basically says, they were probably drunk. They were probably fucked with the wrong person. They were out in a place they probably shouldn't have been. It's whatever. We'll say they died doing something heroic. Just leave it alone. And Cyril does not leave it alone. And he spends the first arc doing everything he can to figure it out and to find those who are responsible. And it ends really badly. Ferrex gets blown up in a significant way. A bunch of people get seriously injured. And it basically calls the Empire in. And the ISB take full control of the situation, and he gets demoted. His commander-in-chief gets demoted. The guy he was working with gets demoted. It's all a disaster. And then Cyril is basically on the back burner for season 1 until he sees an opportunity in the information that Dedra's got from having searched into Axis, being Luthen, with pieces that have come from Cyril's investigation as well. All these parts that are getting moved around, if they're put together, make an interesting collection, and it seems it's all going to one place. This is like the beginnings of tracking the Rebel Alliance before it's even the Rebel Alliance. And Cyril, by the end of season 1, has gotten his chance to come through for the Empire once again. He's figured some things out, and he's a useful ally, and he's going to be working for Dedra directly. He does save her life, so it's all sort of set. You jump a year forward, and they're in a relationship now. And I will say I'm still relatively disappointed with what they did for Cyril in Arc 1 of this season. But
yeah,
2 and 3,
the stuff with his mom is a bit cringe.
It's not like it's useless. I wanted way more of what was going on career end for Cyril, but obviously we got a heavy amount of that in Arc 2 and 3, thankfully. So he's been, to explain the dynamic here, the Empire want to destroy Gorman as a result of mining a particular ore. And they can't just do that. That would be very bad, politically speaking, especially when they don't have unilateral power, which they're getting to, which is kind of what this whole series is leading to. So until then, they need to construct a web of lies, if you will, on this spider-ridden planet, where they're going to have to facilitate the result through a bunch of other means. And there's a discussion in Arc 1 of how they're going to lay that out over time. And so Dedra's aware of the plan, Partagaz is, the ISB are controlling this whole operation for the most part, and it's going to construct it in such a way that we will agitate the locals until forcing them, or encouraging them rather, to cause enough of a scene that they can take absolute control over the planet. That seems to be the Empire's plan. That's like the simplest way to put it. Cyril's job, as described, is that he needs to root out like enemy influences, like the rebels, like Andor, like whoever, who might be convincing the members of Gorman to, react in bad ways. And that's awful. The Gorman people, we like them somewhat. We can't let the rebels, convince them to agitate and go nuts and stuff. We've got to stop that. So we see in Arc 2 that Cyril's working to infiltrate and understand the Gorman rebellion and then make use of that by feeding information. And he, by the end of it, has watched them actually operate a full attempt to sabotage and steal. So he thinks he's well on the road. And this is, as was mentioned in Arc 2, the best time in his life. He's finally sort of come through. He's always wanted to serve the Empire in a positive way and crush out, the bad elements of the world and come through in a just and loyal way, protecting the innocent. And so this whole job he's been conducting, it's all working pretty well. But as you see, more time goes on, more little things just keep popping up to him as strange. And Dedra's not explaining to him. There's other elements of this that don't make sense at all. And one of the things that happens in this episode is all of this is coming to a head. Like a grenade is about to go off with all of this stuff in the plaza. And one of the last conversations he has with her, she basically says, pack your things and prepare to leave. You need to not be here. He's just like, what? Why? What the fuck is going on? And it's just don't worry about it. We're going to get promoted. We're going to get rewards. And we're going back to Coruscant. It's going to be great. And you start to realize, and I think the show can sort of convince the audience to slip into this, Cyril's not doing this for strict career rewards. He believes in it.
Mm-hmm.
So my job here,
he believes he's the good guy. He believes he's doing the right thing and he's serving a just cause. And that's the moment where it finally falls apart for him, and he realizes, oh shit, we're not serving a just cause. The people we are fighting and potentially dying for are not good people. This has all been a sham. It's all a manipulation, and I've been part of it, and I've helped to make
promotions
this happen.
Though.
Well, and I just love the way they do it by degrees, right? Because he's inspecting more and more. He starts hearing sort of rhetoric that continue from not only the people in charge, but also all the journalists. It's everyone's saying the exact same thing, the rumor thing. It starts to really get on his nerves. He's like, why is everyone saying nothing, really? And then he spots...
Well, yeah, remember when he's going into the headquarters and he can see the Imperial sort of news anchor talking about insurgency and increasing tensions from the locals and increased attacks, and it's they're not doing any of this.
Yeah, he's
getting the Empire ramping up, but
more and more disturbed.
Yeah.
And then they have him wait because he wants to speak to Dedra. He needs to go over what the fuck is going on, and they put him in a room where he spots 6, I think it might even be 8 of those security droids that are just waiting. Yeah. And those are bulky, buff boys. They're basically planted ready. And it's just what the fuck are these doing here? And, if you haven't already figured out what's going on, he eventually does. And he barges in to speak to old Dedra. All right, and you're going to have to... Here we go.
This scene, man, is just... And this is in the midst of everything else about to kick off. It's incredible.
Oh, there you go.
What are we doing here?
Following orders.
How long have you known about all this? How long?
We can discuss
this. Is compare this Cyril, right, to the guy who was... Yeah, this is now that his values are under threat, now that he actually... What he's believed in his whole life is crumbling, this is the moment where he snaps, right? And compare this to the guy who was just putty in her hands, when his mother was over. Yeah, and just kind of just did whatever she said. And it's because he believed in her, he believed in what he was doing, he believed in the life that he was living. Now he realizes it's a lie, and holy shit, does this man snap.
He's kind of gone on the opposite arc for Andor. When you pick up with Andor, one of the first things Andor does is that act of violence when he's accosted in the streets in season 1. And Andor goes from being kind of without belief and sort of having recourse to violence solely to protect himself because he doesn't have a grander thing to fight for. Over time, gains that cause, gains something approaching belief, which he's not even now actually fully bought into, but obviously is heading in that direction. Cyril goes in the opposite direction. Cyril goes from being the guy who fully believes in the rightness of the system that he serves. Even for his first introduction in season 1, he's the one who insists that everybody does their jobs properly because it's the right thing to do. And even, as MauLer has been laying out, gets to this planet and believes that he's trying to lure rebels in to expose them for the good of the Empire, only to discover in this moment that he's not done any such thing. The planet that he thought he was serving and the Empire he thought he was serving are basically at odds with each other. And he's been manipulated just as everybody else has been into creating a trap for the people that he thought he was trying to protect.
that he's come to know over these this time, right? We've had 2-year jumps, so there's every reasonable chance he's got some level of understanding or respect for the Gorman people and wants this
He's
to be
spent a
solved.
year building that.
Because he's not a man who lacks compassion or empathy for other people. Like that's kind of what he's about.
Why this scene like sort of sparks off immediately as well is the huge contrast for both of these people. He is quite submissive, and like to see him so aggressively do this, and then not only just in general, but to her, who in every single scene has been confident, aggressive, cold, and she's got like an exterior that never gets broken, and she's immediately terrified here. Like it's already too much for her. She doesn't know what's happening.
Well, this is like the perfect comment. Did they lock Kathleen and Kennedy in a basement when they filmed this because she hates this sort of like? Yeah, like exactly. Because like this is essentially a bigger, stronger man exerting physical force over a woman and terrifying her because he's so fucking infuriated.
Well, yeah, that was definitely one of the elements for me. I was surprised they got away with this scene considering what happens in it.
Evil.
Yeah. Do you want to play a bit more?
It's too late already.
Please.
You're going to tell me what this has really been about?
You're hurting me.
And you are going to tell me what the mining ships are doing here.
They're not.
There is an armada up there. They're already unloading in Gelnobi and Liqua. You couldn't even wait.
Pause it just for a sec. For no particular reason, but it's just to avoid like getting completely screwed over by copyright.
Good relationship.
If anyone tunes in at this moment, like of open bar, they'd be like, "Wow, what are these guys watching? I want some of this."
What's so interesting to watch happen is that he had all the information he needed for a while, but it's only now that he's letting it all flow together, and he's not letting the lies stay up anymore. Right? That's what's. Because even she's, all that shit about rumors and stuff, they've all given him some really shit lies up to this point, and he's just had enough.
Him and Andor are parallel characters where Andor gets more and more confident and secure in what he believes, and obviously for the Alliance, where he starts out super secure and just gets more and more to like, what are we doing to this scene where it all starts?
Yeah.
And even then, like, we've complained a little bit about the first arc of this season, and I still would say that could have been tightened up significantly. But even then, like the stuff in there that does take too long to get to the point still has a point, right? The part of the point of that dinner scene with the mother and with Dedra at the beginning of that arc is to show that she is like the most powerful person in his life. It used to be his mother because like she is the domineering, almost like the stereotypical Jewish mother who always wants like her son to do better and better and better and better. And Dedra comes along and completely supplants her in order to set her up as the epitome of power in his domestic affairs. And now he's been reduced to this point. So it's not only his belief in the empire that's crumbled into dust, but it's also, his faith in the woman that he thought was basically his wife and the person that he trusted above everything else. And it's been reduced to this.
Yeah.
You tell me it's a rumor and I will throw you out that window. What have we been doing here?
There's a stone. Something in the dirt here. They need it. It's the energy program. It's directly from the Emperor. It's something they can't do without. They need the planet.
And that's it.
I love how much her walls have been broken down. First, earlier talking to Pendergast, she's all shaky and twitchy, and there to this where she's got nothing. There's no hiding.
Well, I mean, he made it very clear. It's like, if you even try to bullshit me with this stuff, like, I'm going to straight up throw you through a window.
I didn't think he had it in him.
I know. Well, this is it. But, like, this is the fascinating aspect of his character, where they are willing to give him nuance and depth and facets to his personality. And if you push a person in the right way, they will snap. Even the meekest, most timid person you'll ever meet, you find that right thing that's important to them, then they're going to snap, and that's his thing.
And there's the wonderful contrast as well with Dedra herself, because you see there's a couple of scenes in there where, because she's in on this plan from the beginning and he isn't, so she has to lie to him all the way through this. And there's a couple of scenes where even Partagaz points out that she seems on edge, and you're sort of thinking, is she gonna confess? Is she gonna own up to it? Is she gonna turn like traitor on them because she loves him too much? And the fact that she doesn't, and she still, even after he leaves, she says to the troops, "Go get him back." She doesn't realize what she's done in a way. She doesn't realize it's over. And like what's done now can't be undone. And that contrast in their two characters, the absolute true believer versus the one whose true belief has just been shattered, is also just really, really well drawn.
but I did warm to her character a lot more in this episode. Because you can see all throughout the episode as the build-up happens, as the troops begin to move in, as the machinery starts to grind towards this massacre. Like, she's not into this. She doesn't want this to happen. And you can see the hesitancy, you can see the weight that's settling on her.
If you remember in arc, I think it was arc 1, it was discussed like her passion is Axis. She wants to, with clever sorting out of all these details, capture a little rat that's running through the entire system that she's on the trail of, versus organize and execute the Gorman project is not something she really wanted.
Yeah. Well, doesn't she shed a tear as well once the shooting starts?
I was going to say I'd have to rewatch to get the specific details, but obviously they make it very clear she's not comfortable with most of this, and certainly not after Cyril's fate as well.
Yeah.
Which is bold to give a scene to show an explicit bad guy mourning. It's you don't get that in a lot of more cartoony stuff.
Yeah.
Well, do I continue, or do you want to show something else?
Maybe just give the end of the scene, because I do like the way it ends as well.
How long have you known this?
We're going home, Cyril. We're going home as heroes. This began long before we got here. They've been planning it for years.
I love how she says this like it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Trying to make it seem like comfortable, happy, like awesome news, and it's just devastating to him.
It kind of had echoes, and I just realized it too. And forgive me for comparing it to the prequels, but of Anakin trying to tell Padme, it's great, I can overthrow the Chancellor. As far as like, no, that's not selling me. That's not a good thing. You're deluded.
Well, it's half that. This is the stuff that convinces her, right? Like those career opportunities are things that are going to push her up. And she, I think, believes at this point that is somewhat tempting to. She does have a final gambit here with that.
This is her moment of realizing, like, oh shit, the guy that I thought I understood, I don't. Like the things I thought I could tempt him with and win him over with, they don't apply to him. Really, it wasn't about that. I fundamentally misunderstood who this guy was. And it all comes to the fore in this moment.
Yeah, I'd say it's very clear that the promotions or opportunities that Cyril enjoys, like they need to be attached to a sense of pride about the work he's managed to do. Yeah. It's important to him.
They're doing this no matter what. We wanted to be together. You didn't seem to mind the promotions.
Look at that. Like she's waiting for a reaction from him, and she's not getting it. And she's just like, "Oh fuck, what have I done? Yeah. I've just run into a sheer brick wall of like nothing."
Well, if you just track the way she made her arguments, right? Like all these great things we're gonna get, and then actually the work itself, heroes, all these different things, and then finally like a desperation of you fucking benefited, and it's just like not working. None of this is working.
Yeah.
And I think she's coming to realize the kind of man she's dealing with here.
Good luck, Tetra. Him realizing what kind of woman he has been dealing with. How long have you known? Like, hits on a couple different levels.
All of the like a kind of interpersonal drama like this, like mixed in with essentially like a galaxy redefining genocide taking place outside, and having it all work, and having it all like none of the things that are going on here feel like they're competing with each other, or like, oh god, I can't believe I've got to suffer through this shitty little subplot while I wait for the more interesting things to come along. Every single component of it works perfectly together.
Yeah,
I love this episode,
and it works with everything that comes afterwards. So, like, I think it's mentioned before, but by the end of this episode, you're sort of leading to the part where just to explain basically a single line that Tarkin offers in episode 4 when he talks about the Emperor dissolving the Senate forever. This is all the setup for that. This is the galaxy moving to that position. It's the final warning Mon Mothma gives in her speech: is that Palpatine is like the beast who will come for us all because we've given up on the values of truth and objectivity. This entire arc is kind of teasing and feeding into the setup beats for A New Hope. It's almost seamless the way that it does that. So it's all completely integral to like the broader question of the Star Wars galaxy and the world building therein.
Well, and it's hard not to see it. We need 3 more episodes, but Andor season 1 and 2 plus Rogue One equals like the process of the Empire taking full stranglehold of the universe and the small glimmer of hope they've got to destroy the Death Star by the end. Like, and then that leads into the OT where we watched it happen.
Even the little line in A New Hope of the Emperor just dissolved the Senate. I would kind of like to see that scene since we've just been seeing it.
Yeah, we will. I'm sure. But yeah, I'm kind of aware we've been talking about Andor for like an hour now, so perhaps we ought to move on. But
it's so nice. Think how many hours we had to spend talking about the Acolyte, and now Andor comes out. It's worthy of at least an hour.
Power
you know what?
1, 2, and 3.
It's been such a pleasure just to be able to talk about something, especially something Star Wars related, where I can genuinely say, holy shit, like this was so fucking good. Like it got me emotionally, it engaged me intellectually, it was well constructed, well thought out, mature, interesting, played with loads of interesting ideas, had great actors involved, had a shitload of money spent on it. It was everything that we would want. The only tragedy is that no one's going to fucking watch it and it's going to get forgotten.
Do you think that's a symptom of the really slow burn first arc? Because I actually quite enjoy season 2. I think it's better than a lot of what people are saying. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's boring and all that. There are a couple of plots that I think are overly long, but plot is only one element of the show. In every other regard, cinematically, it's excellent. Like in terms of the acting, the production design, just everything. But people have been very impatient with it because the plot isn't as fast as they would like it to be. And I don't know, man, like that coupled with the reaction to the Thunderbolts, which kind of shocked me how much people like that pile of shit.
Oh, yeah, true.
I sort of thought, has the audience been moronified? Have they been?
There's a danger of that, yeah.
I'm serious, man. It's not the first time this has happened. This happened with some piece of shit movie last year where people said it was great. And it's like, what's going on?
It's not moronified.
If you want me to define piece of shit movies from last year, man, that's a pretty wide
But there were so
field,
many, I just lost which movie it was. But it's like utterly like shite. Like the Thunderbolts come out, people say they praise it, they say it's masterpiece. Andor comes out, people say this is shit, this is boring, this is overly long. And sometimes I do worry. Sometimes I worry. It's like, what is going on? Have people have they got Disney brain? It's like if something isn't exploding in the sky every 5 minutes, they just lose interest. It's like TikTokification of the audience.
We did talk about, Andor and, the detractors and like, is there merit to some of the criticisms for it? Because I've been critical of it in the past as well. And like 100% stand by some of that stuff. It is a slow burn and it can be a little bit overly intellectualized. And certainly with certain episodes, you get that feeling of the characters being maybe a little bit cold and sterile at times. And, it's a little bit hard to engage with compared to like the normal tempo of Star Wars, which is very adventurous, very fast-paced, very emotional, like very driven that way. And Andor is something quite different. I just would say to people, particularly once you get to these later episodes, the payoffs are worth the setup. It comes down to episodes like this. This is what it's been building up to, and this is like almost your reward for getting through slower episodes. And yet, to argue your point, Despot, you're 100% right. With those first 3 episodes of season 2 were a terrible way to start the season. They were very clunky, quite slow at times, and featured some really dumb
the plot with the rebels fighting each other. That should have just been cut out. And
that's like Dave Filoni kind of invaded the set for like a few weeks and just said, "Oh, we're going to do this thing where the fucking stupid rebels that are fighting over a TIE fighter."
It even had elements of like, because you know how Star Wars is quite bifurcated now. You've got Andor, which is intellectual, intelligent, and well written, and then you've got the fucking Acolyte. There was even a little sort of Acolyte-esque moment where a big monster runs out of the forest and gobbles somebody up. That was very Ahsoka, very sort of CGI theatrics and dumb and not really in fitting with the aesthetic of Andor.
And it was also, I think, probably a fairly unsubtle way of trying to make a point that it was going to go on to make better in later episodes anyway. Like, I think the argument that they would put for it is, well, you needed to show the rebels in that complete state of disarray and with no leaders, because part of this journey is the arc of the rebellion coalescing behind leadership. There's a line delivered to Andor in a later episode about, you need to start thinking like a leader, and the rebels turning from that disorganized rabble without any kind of unifying cause into something which is unified with true belief, with a leadership structure which is then prepared to take on the Empire, is probably why that scene is there, to give you sort of point A so you can understand point Z later. The problem with it, apart from it being too long and apart from it being silly, is that they do the same thing when you get to Gorman. That's the story of Gorman. So you didn't need the earlier scene. Unless we see them come back in like the last 3 episodes, it does seem like a wasted episode. Even like everything to do with the stealing of that experimental TIE fighter seems like a wasted episode, because it doesn't really lead anywhere. And all the stuff it does do is just repeated. So you've got the hat on the hat stuff, which, as mentioned earlier, probably justifies skipping that and just beginning with episode 4.
Well, especially if it drains any and all potential of, like, I would rather replace every last second of that with more Partakaz or Luthen or Mod Mothma or Cyril. I'm just like, just give me more of these characters, please.
To fill you in, Despot, as well, like, I'm sure you're aware of this.
Oh, yeah,
as
sorry
well.
I'm late, by the way.
No, it's fine. Like, you're only an hour late. It's okay. We've had worse. But yeah, like the whole discourse around the first 3 episodes became like, one, it's kind of slow and boring and nobody cared about the stupid Mon Mothma wedding, and 2, the rape scene that everyone talked about, and then that just completely dominated the discourse to the exclusion of all else, that just then overshadowed the actual quality of the show, which is frustrating as fuck. And it's a shame that that is what happened, because I don't know, man. It feels like it just crippled any chance that season 2 had of capitalizing on the goodwill of season 1.
Yeah, there was strategy to be had. I think somewhat. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to say quick that, like, the season 2 opener, they must have known on a meta level that the audience ignored the latter half of season 1 because of the former half. So try not to make that error again in terms of, like, too much long burning setup in the first 3 episodes, but they did again. And this, it's not to say there's nothing. We've said several times, it's not worthless, it's not bad, it's just it's not going to get a lot of people in. And now one of the more common sentiments I'm seeing is, so I have to watch a whole bunch of episodes I don't like to get to the good stuff. It's like,
yeah.
No,
and to give a sense of like how subtle some of the useful stuff that is useful is in that. So like the scene with the mother, again, sort of reestablishing her role as being like ultimately powerful in Cyril's life. She is vitally important later and it's very subtly done, but when he's talking to her about effectively the message she's been receiving about what's happening on Gorman, she's the recipient of the Empire's propaganda. The break has already happened between truth and reality, and Cyril hasn't realized it yet, but his mother is the thing that kind of foreshadows everything that's going to happen. So it's still useful in that regard.
Yeah.
But that is very subtle and probably doesn't require a scene of the length of that dinner party scene in episode 2, was it?
Yeah, you're right. The mother represents the average citizen, and now she's going to have watched that on TV. Her son is dead as a result of this Gorman uprising, right? So it's like the Empire should probably crush them. They've done all these horrible things, and that's going to be a sentiment that is propagandized throughout the galaxy. And it's up to simultaneously. This is what I find so fascinating about this. This is going to galvanize the rebellion significantly. Going to have a bunch of new people. Gorman is going to technically be joining it, right? They took the senator from Gorman, right? He's been arrested.
Yeah.
And dude, that fucking moment where he says, today it's me. It could be any of you. Could be your people next time. And they show Bail Organa looking at him. Fucking Alderaan is like the next target.
Yeah.
It's
good stuff.
Excellent stuff. And I was going to say, before we move on, I don't know if you wanted to sort of seal out, how Cyril is at the end of his story, Drager, a bit. I don't know.
I could, yeah. Are we spoiling things for people? Do we want to just encourage them to watch it?
Anybody who's listened up to this point and is still not interested in watching it, I suppose this could be a way to tempt them to, because that ending is fantastic, I would say.
All right, show us. Hit us with it, baby.
I thought maybe you'd want to just talk about it.
Oh, right, yeah, okay, we can talk about it.
It's up to you, because it's a bit, it's not short, that scene.
That is true, yeah. So ultimately, in the middle of the massacre, he and Andor encounter each other, and well, this is what we've been waiting for, I guess, for 2 seasons. A big battle for the ages ensues. And it's got just the most brutally it's like poignant but also mundane as well, like resolution to it, that Cyril has him at gunpoint. And Andor just looks at him and says, "Who are you?" Doesn't know a thing about him. This guy that he's been chasing for like the past 2 seasons.
Dude, it's so well prompted too, because this guy is so passionately trying to kill Andor. And he's just like, why? Who even are you? Like, you don't even. Why do you want to kill me so much? Like, what the fuck's going on? It's such a genuine reaction.
This is it here. It's like it's him saying, "Who are you?" to Cyril reminded me of Thanos to Wanda, except good. Also, Andor in the second season is a much more engaging character, and his reaction to his first act capture is indicative of that.
It's horrible because he just had everything he believed in destroyed, but the last thing he had was catching Cassian.
Yes,
and so when he gets
because
that dude doesn't even know who he is.
Because he's so brutal when he goes in for the fight. Like he is just trying
like
to pummel
push
him
on his
into
face
fucking submission. Yeah,
very
then
primal.
You get that like extra tragic bit, which is that he almost stops at the end because he kind of there's that what the fuck was all of this for moment, almost dawning realization, and that I'm not sure
he was lowering his
gonna,
gun.
I thought he was lowering his gun.
That's sort of the point. He sees it. Cassian says, "You know, I don't even know who you are," and he suddenly realizes that everything that he's fought for has just been what even was this? And then it happens, and like he's on the cusp of realizing it, and it's taken away from him by a guy who in his own way is a brilliant character as well. This old guy who's like the leader of this planet, who loves his people, who's been preaching the inviolability of non-violent protest, trying to get people to do this the right way, and at the end of it all, he's being turned into something else, and it's just, oh god, yeah, that's a strong scene.
Well, it's the equivalent of like World War I soldiers meeting each other in no man's land and realizing like this guy's not my enemy and the guys commanding me are not my friends. It's all just manipulation. It's people just being manipulated into like serving someone else's cause.
The mission Cyril had here, right, to root out and find outside influence that are trying to turn the Gormans to rebellion. This seeing Andor here is like complete confirmation and the peak of that mission, but also the ultimate like vengeance potential for his whole life having gone down this path. It's such an interesting choice to make writing wise, right? Because his whole world is already crippled and collapsing after that discussion with Dedra, but there it is. That's the proof that the rebellion are here. That's the guy who you've been chasing forever, the one that's fucked you over, the one that had you at gunpoint back in season 1. It's just like, he's right there. It's everything. And of course, he's already got all this fucking rage for having been betrayed and confused about everything. All these people dying. Just takes it all out on Andor. But then that perfect question coming back to him. And it's like, yeah, who is Cyril now? What is he going to do next? What happens? And before he even has time to really consider his next move, the story cuts it off. It's like, it's too late. The actions up to now of your past life have stopped you from being able to reach this new one. Because, a lot of people have been discussing, it's like, man, if he didn't get shot there, I wonder if maybe like he could have joined the rebellion.
He answered that, by the way. The actor, did you see that? The actor actually answered that. He said that his character, he thinks, would have been so distraught that he wouldn't have joined either side. He would have just gone off and lived alone.
I can see how it would make you quite a cynical man at the end of all that.
Yeah, just destroyed.
Yeah.
That's not possible, though. If you're an intelligent, capable person in those kind of circumstances, somebody's going to snap you up. It's like Kentucky tried to stay neutral at the start of the American Civil War, and that lasted for about 5 minutes. It's just not possible under those circumstances.
A man like him who is so principled and believes so strongly in the cause that he is invested in, to have that taken away from him, it would be like ripping out the very core of his being, like the center of his life. Like his worldview would have no meaning anymore. He would have no moral compass. I just think he perhaps would just disappear. I can totally understand that. But yeah, I mean, like the fact that we're able to have such interesting discussions about these characters in Andor, God, I've missed this. I've missed being able to like have something that we can grapple with that's actually good. That has a bit of nuance to it and a bit of complexity. I feel like we've been a bit short of those kinds of things recently, and there's a Star Wars show made by Disney of all fucking people that's delivered it somehow against all the odds.
Doesn't it feel weird? But at the same time, you calibrate everything, and you're like, no, it's true. It's like Cyril Khan is one of the best Star Wars characters of all time now.
Mm-hmm.
It just is.
We
it's like,
need to have like a Cyril appreciation day or something.
well, it's like, does he clear all of the Disney Star Wars characters? It's like, pretty much. It's
Yeah.
like, what's the competition there?
It's the
I
lowest
wouldn't
of the
be
low bars.
entirely surprised like if like the next several episodes he's almost held up as the martyr for the Empire, and like because that seems like the kind of thing the show would do. Like the man who's just had his faith in the Empire completely exploded is then used by the Empire to achieve exactly the thing he finally didn't want to happen.
He is probably he's probably the highest ranking Imperial officer that died during the Gorman massacre. So I could totally see why they would hold him
captain
up there.
at that point.
Yeah, captain. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see Deidre doing it, like putting him up for like an award posthumously, like, oh, look, to make herself cope out of it.
Yeah. Anyway, well, Andor. I never thought I'd hear myself say this about a Star Wars show from Disney, but yeah, I heartily recommend it. If you guys have not given it a chance yet, please at least give episodes 7, 8, and 9 a watch.
And hopefully they stick the landing.
I've got faith at this point. I think they've earned it. Let me just read a couple of supers before we go on. This is from Chaelkoff, says, a small token of my appreciation. Thanks for all the quality content and keep up the good work. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate that. And the Inner Light says, hey guys, please name a book or two on story writing that you'd recommend. Thank you. May you and your audience live long and prosper.
There's a great one by an author named John York, which I read recently. It's called Into the Woods, and it's fantastic. It's about script writing. And the great thing about it is he gives many, many examples. So, for example, when he's talking about subtext, he will talk about examples from British TV drama and things like that. And that's a great book. Yeah, Into the Woods by John York. Check that out.
I hate to recommend Stephen King because he's a dick in real life, but his book on writing is actually really useful. For any prospective authors out there, it is a pretty useful insight into the creative process, like the work that you can do with characters, how to juggle plot, and like, you know, all the nuances of writing. He actually gets his thoughts down pretty concisely in that book, so it is worth a read as well.
Yeah. Also read Quentin Tarantino's book, because he doesn't necessarily talk about writing per se, but he talks a great deal about the movies and what makes movies work and what makes movies not work. And he goes from the 70s, and he goes chronologically from there about movies that he loves. It's a fantastic book. It's very passionate, and you do get a sense of what, at least to him, works in a movie if you're after screenwriting. And no matter what style of writing you're going for, read English Politics and the English Language by George Orwell. It's absolutely essential reading for all writers.
Well, we've gone from like the highest of the highs to possibly the lowest of the lows. Shall we talk about The Last of Us episode 4? Because oh gosh, I sent MauLer a text the other night just saying, like, I don't know if I can do this much longer, man. Like, I'm close to calling it with Last of Us season 2.
Like most of the audience
saying that to me.
It is just fucking intellectual torture at this point. I hate it. I hate everything this show is. I hate the fucking potato woman that leads it now. I just, it's awful. It's so childish the way it's written. It's so laden with like the most heavy-handed of social justice messaging. It's like it was made in like 2017 or something. Like, it's so dated now, and it's so obvious with all of this crap. I don't know how anyone can take it seriously anymore.
Well, the audience score has collapsed, and that last episode in particular, like the finger bang episode or whatever you want to call it,
I kid you not, man. I had to fast forward through that scene. I could not watch it physically.
It was. Do you know what it was for me? It wasn't just like I have no problem with lesbian sex. Mulholland Drive has a lesbian sex scene. I watched it many times as a teenage boy.
That's Naomi Watts, though. Like, that's a very different. That's a different scene.
But that was in, and that's a good comparison, because in Mulholland Drive, those two actresses had real chemistry. The lesbian sex scene was believable, and it felt natural the way they came together. Whereas, no pun intended. Whereas in The Last of Us, it was horrible because they had zero chemistry, and all of a sudden they're fucking, and it's like, oh no, this is just not right.
I just imagine like the poor actress that has to play what the fuck's her name?
Isabella Merced, I believe, is the one acting opposite.
Yeah.
She must be a good actress.
Going through that whole scene, just like I want to throw up right now.
It's a hot girl from Superman coming up.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
she is, she is hot. I'll give her that. But like, okay, right. Let's be mature about this, gentlemen. Okay, if I compared their relationship in this show to their relationship in the game, where it's much more, Ellie's much more driven. She's much more serious at this point. She is on a mission. Okay, she's on a mission for vengeance. Obviously, she's out to kill Abby and everyone who participated in Joel's murder, and so doesn't necessarily have much time for relationships and the being the loving partner that she wants to be, all that sort of thing, because there's something else consuming her. And her girlfriend throughout it is just trying to pull her back from the abyss. This is a girl who's teetering on just like disappearing into vengeance and just having it consume her. And she's always trying to pull her back, but Ellie's like very much focused on what she's doing. That is quite mature. And I think that the game at least does a good attempt at handling that. This fucking clown show that we have to watch is just... Ellie is like laughing and joking. She's jovial. It's all just a big adventure. I don't get what they're going for. Like, can someone help me on this one? I don't get what they're trying to do with this.
Yeah,
How
for
many
example,
episodes are, left? Does anyone know?
What?
How many episodes are actually left? Like, how much time do they have to tell
2,
story?
I think. I think it's 6 episodes for this season.
And isn't a third season greenlit?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh.
Who's
It's
that
just
going to
torture.
open up to? The audience is going to have completely collapsed by the end of this season.
It's
You can look at
already
the
on way.
IMDb, not the ratings, but the people that rate it, and the one where Pablo leaves, it's like 45,000 or something, and then by the end, Pedro rather, and by the end, it's like 14,000 people from a high of like 45,000. So like people aren't even reviewing it, watching it. They're
I
clearly
never
leaving.
I never thought I'd hear myself say this, but I miss Pedro Pascal in this show.
No, like, I mean, it doesn't even need to be him. It's like a contrasting character that can be played well by actors. There's just nothing to gain from the conversations between these two, who are now our main characters. Meanwhile, when Pedro was in it, like, there was plenty for them to work through and to discuss and to have conflict over. But now,
Well, imagine, like 2 different people, different ages, different backgrounds, different perspectives on the world. They can spark off each other. That's the essence of drama with characters. Like,
God,
we don't
they
have
are-
that with these guys.
the conversations are fucking worthless. Like, it is hard to stay awake watching it.
Yeah, I can't remember a single conversation they had. They are so fucking boring. And that's the first thing I noticed, because I watched, prior to this season, I didn't play the game, but I watched the supercut on YouTube. It's like a 4-hour long of all the cutscenes. And I was appalled. I was actually shocked at how bad it was. And I was prepared going in that I knew that it would be bad. But the big thing that got me was just how fucking boring it was.
Anyone else find it hilarious that they hunkered down in like their own little HQ, which is about 10 meters away from a horde of zombies?
Yeah.
But
they looked like they were probably like secured behind those doors, MauLer. So I'm sure.
Oh, you sure? Are we sure?
So that's the thing. I wouldn't stop running until I couldn't fucking move my legs anymore, like from getting away from that shit.
They barricaded it with a chair. Did you not see them barricading it with the chair?
Yeah.
You know what? That's fair. We're all good. But the tonal difference felt like they'd shot it at completely different times, because as soon as they get into like the theater or whatever, it's like, well, yeah, there we go, done and done. And I was just like, what the fuck? We were just like panicking, and you'd just been bitten. Like, obviously, I know about the immunity,
Also,
but she
where
should
was the
know.
This is the video game mentality, though, isn't it? It's like, oh, we're transitioning from gameplay into a cutscene, and now the game's decided that we're safe so that we can have this conversation, blah blah blah, and like that's what's driving this show. But like, this isn't a video game. Like, it's supposed to be believable.
Even in a video game, if I were, playing a video game and I go from a zombie horde to another building, I'm actually playing Dying Light 2 at the minute. It's a great game. The first thing you do is reconnaissance. You check for resources and enemies, and then you can, do whatever, chill out and look around at the little things they have in the game if you want to check that out. But in this, they get into the theater, they don't do any reconnaissance, they don't check to see if, well, are we the only people here, or is this, this wolf pack people here? They don't do any of that. They don't check for zombies. They just say, yep, this is good, we're fine. And that's not how people would behave in a zombie apocalypse. It's the behavior of Dina and Ellie, which is completely at odds with the world that they are in, and it creates this dissonance. And as you're watching it, you're aware humans would not behave like that in this kind of world. It's just totally at odds with the world that they've created. It's
I mean,
done.
if
It
I
looks like
was-
two actors going through a movie set, reading these boring lines, and then they fucking start. They go into a record shop and they start, tapping away at the drums and checking out the records and playing the guitar. And it's like, fuck me. Like, what is this?
It's when
drums
Ellie
especially.
starts singing "Take on Me" and like she keeps going, and I thought like, oh, she'll get interrupted or whatever, and then the more that scene like stretched out, the more I realized the horrifying truth. Oh God, they're literally going to do the entire song while we have to sit and watch it, and I was like, thank God for the fast forward function.
Playing a drum kit in a zombie apocalypse is like a meme. When I saw her doing that, I was like, why? How do I make fun of that? That is the meme already. Like, what the fuck are you doing, you morons? And then, of course, like, the reveal, okay? It's like, I am immune, and I will prove it by being here, for X amount of time, and I won't turn into a zombie, which happens. Immediately kiss and have sex. I was like, I am never going to exchange any liquids with a person who is fucking carrier. Are you kidding me? I was like, they don't behave like with survival in mind whatsoever. It's like, why don't you think she's just a carrier? This is a very common understanding of how disease can work.
Have you seen 28 Weeks Later? I mean, Jesus.
God.
Yeah. Also, she would be used to that. I mean, these are two young women who have grown up in a post-apocalyptic world. They are going to be aware that when people get infected, they will say all sorts of shit to not be shot. Like, oh, I'm immune. Or, no, it's okay. I've got medicine. Or, oh, no, it's okay. They've developed the vaccine. They'll say anything. They'll have heard it all before. You know what I mean? So it's not believable to me that Dina wouldn't kill her immediately. It would have been drilled into her from no age. If somebody gets infected, even if it's your own mother, you put a gun against their head and you shoot them quickly.
I mean, I could kind of get like the idea of, okay, I'm going to keep a gun on you, and if you show the slightest signs of like, sickness or turning, then I'm just going to shoot you. But I'm not going to do it necessarily right now. So I can sort of buy that, but like again, it just the way it's handled just feels like so inferior to the game. I just remember that scene in the game like flowing a lot more smoothly and just feeling a lot more logical and like just easier. It made more sense.
Sure.
How long does it take to turn in The Last of Us lore?
Very quick. Like,
I think it's like
2 hours.
An hour? Yeah, it's like it's a matter of hours.
Like that, yeah.
I don't know, because if you're Dina in that situation, you're sort of thinking, well, what if she turns and it's really fast? She could turn in a second all of a sudden, and I could miss it. I don't know. I don't think it's
not
believable.
as quick as that, but yeah,
I think it would be more a case of if they wanted to do that, they would have had to handcuff her to a radiator or something like that.
I get you.
I think,
maybe.
I think that probably would have worked better.
It's too sloppy. But I mean, that's the least of its problems. Like we're discussing tiny details here. Like in terms of the broad strokes, the thing's just wretched.
Did you like the way that Ellie just casually murdered a guy who was like twice her size?
Dude, there's so much wrong with that scene. When she like sees the staircase and decides I'm gonna climb up it, I was like, they have to get these tight ass shots to make us believe there would be any fucking hope in hell she could have done that stealthily. The last 2 steps at the top, you hear like a and then the guy goes, wait, what? And looks over there and he's like, huh, I think the stairs are cleared. I was just like, no fucking way she got up all of there without making a single sound. And especially, the room is not that big and they're all walking around it. I was like, you'd be spotted easily.
This is straight out of the game again. But
they don't want to have to work for it. They're just like, whatever. And then, she has a fight with him that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it is obscene, especially when you've done martial arts, you realize how dumb this is. And there's a scene where she's got the guy by the neck. Now, look, and realistically, a guy that big, all you would have to do is just drop. If he just drops,
he would be able to grab her and just fucking throw her over.
He could do that if he wanted. He could drop and put his weight on her, and that would pretty much knock her unconscious. Instead, he struggles around, and then she holds him with her left arm, and she withdraws her knife with her right. So she's actually holding this man twice her size with one arm, and he can't get away like some squealing pig. It's just insulting to the audience's intelligence.
And this is from a show that was generally quite well received with season 1. Like, I think we'd probably all agree, like, season 1 did a pretty good job. There was the odd rough episode, and, we can certainly argue about the casting, but overall, like, it was fairly well written, and I think it was fairly coherent and believable for the most part. Then you get to this, and it's just garbage. It's slop.
I mean,
It's
they're not
absolute
in a good
slop
place.
masquerading as like po-faced seriousness.
They're adapting garbage, so it's like the more accurate they are, the more
Sure.
horrible.
Wasn't this to be expected? That's what I was gonna
but-
say. Is because
Yeah.
you knew it was
But
gonna
the-
happen.
With the games, you can understand. It's like Neil Druckmann apparently forced Amy Hennig out of Naughty Dog, and she was like largely responsible for the good quality writing on Last of Us Part 1. Then took it over himself because it's like, well, okay, fine. There's a different creative team involved in this one, and it's like ideologically driven, and it's just slop garbage. With the TV show, though, like it was the same people. Same people wrote and directed season 1 as directed season 2. And so you'd think there'd be a bit more of a continuity of quality there, but apparently not.
Was Neil I mean, I know he's listed as an executive producer on the show, but does he have creative control of this project?
I think he does, yeah.
See,
Pretty heavily.
That's a death knell for it, because the only chance it would have had, and this was actually a really good opportunity, it could have looked at all the criticisms of the video game, of which there are many. Now, there's some excellent videos online. The Closer Look did a very good examination of it, and he literally lists all of the problems, which he explains in detail with the second video game. They could have looked at all that stuff and said, okay, well, here's our problems and here's how we're going to solve them. It's a pretty good opportunity to do that, and instead they just made the same mistakes again, which is incredibly hubristic.
That's what it is. It's ego. It just comes down to ego, because like to change it and to react in the face of criticism would mean admitting that what you did wasn't well received. What you did wasn't that good. And so you have to change it now to please people. And that just, I don't know. Neil Druckmann's ego just won't allow for that. He has to do it exactly as he did in the game. And that's effectively what they do here. Almost down to like the shots, like beat for beat, are just exactly the same.
Well then.
I mean, yeah. On the plus side, Ellie's going to be a dad. Do you know that?
Oh yeah, Christ.
Can I show you? Can you handle this level of cringe? I'm going to try. I might get a copyright strike from HBO. You know, that's not been unknown recently.
Warner are the worst for that. I've found, just in terms of copyright, like editing stuff and trying to get it past YouTube copyright, Warner are the strictest when it comes to copyright.
They are, but like when I uploaded my video, it passed all the copyright checks and it was fine. It was only when it got like 500,000 views or whatever it was.
So scummy.
Someone went in and manually copyright claimed it and said like, "Nah, you can't have this because you're criticizing our show." And literally, it's only because I think a lot of people made videos about the fact that it got blocked, and I raised a stink about it on social media, that it got unblocked within a matter of hours. Like, they backed the fuck off from that one, which is nice and all, but like, that's just lucky that I've got the reach to be able to do that. But a lot of other people who might have legit criticisms of the show might not have that, and they don't have that recourse. So what's going to happen to them? Like, they'll get struck or they'll get blocked or whatever, and they can't say anything. That's how they get to abuse the copyright system like this, and nobody, for the most part, can check them. It's bullshit,
the copyright
man.
system on YouTube is so broken, because if you appeal, it just goes to the person who copyrighted it, and then they decide whether or not to keep their copyright. And then if you want to move past that, if it gets rejected again, you get a copyright strike on your channel, which is a disaster for the channel algorithmically. It's so fucking broken, the YouTube copyright system. Don't even get me started on that shit.
It is, but like generally, if you go to appeal, they will back off. If you take it that far, like they've always backed off. Like, apart from maybe one video I've had where they then wanted a removal, but like every other time they've backed off from it. So it does, at least, like, if you're willing to push it pretty far, it's usually okay. But you should probably do it one at a time, because if you have a whole bunch of them, like, potentially up for appeal, they could all get copyright strikes, and then boom, you got your 3 strikes, and then your channel's dead. So yeah, it's a gamble. Anyway, let's check out the Ellie and Dina drama.
Ellie's gay, by the way.
So we're having a baby.
No, you're not. You're not having anything, you fucking human potato. Like, Dina's having the baby, and Jesse is arguably having it with her because he's the father. You're nothing. You're not part of this equation.
Does he even come up in their
one-
conversation? Because I'm sitting here like Gandalf, thinking I have no memory of any of these scenes. But
They
does
do
this-
mention him.
him?
They do mention him, but it's literally just a passing mention.
He's got like 5 seconds of screen time left. That boy is
Yeah,
it's
he's
not
gonna
going to
get
end well for
readied.
him.
Yeah.
I mean, we and also, I guess, Jesse or... It was
No.
Jesse, right?
I love how he's just a throwaway, like, I've fucked so many guys. Like, it could be Jesse, it could be half of Jackson. Who knows? Like,
So we're all having a baby.
Like, that looks like an actual girl, and this one just looks like, I don't know what this is.
I'm gonna be a dad.
That is in the running for like the cringiest moment of the year. Last year, I actually gave it to the fucking Jaguar ad last year. It was almost that acolyte fucking witch chant, the power of many.
Yeah,
but that's in the running now. I'm gonna be a dad. That could be the cringiest moment of 2025.
I can only tell you, man. Like
nice
watching this,
it.
I had a physical reaction, like watching her say that. Like I feel like my spinal column's like, oh, come on. Like, oh, it's horrible.
It is. I mean, being as generous to it as is possible. I think they wanted, like, it's kind of supposed to be a fairly heartwarming, feel-good kind of joke, as opposed to I am sincerely in favor of this idea that women can be a dad kind of thing. The problem is that because everything else, message-wise, in the show is so very on the nose, it's kind of can't escape being read as very sincere, much as everything else in the show tries to be. So it's gonna piss people off either way.
It's like when they go through Seattle, they're riding through the ruins of Seattle and there's pride flags everywhere. Somehow, after 20 years, they're still there. Like, yeah, okay. And then they have to comment on that as well.
They had to know how it was going to come across.
It's just so tired. It's so 2018 writing. Like, it's so dated now. Like, every other writer in Hollywood, you know, as ideologically driven as they might be, would know something that on the nose is so passé. Like, the audience isn't going to accept it. It's so cringe. But it's like this just comes from a different era, and they're like, "No, this is new and hip and cool. Let's do it." It's ugh.
Well, that's the thing is you're starting to see so many course corrections, but there's so many things that are held over that still have to come out. And I know we'll talk about it eventually,
new.
but
like,
yeah,
this
well,
show
how much is left
in...
over, you think, from the game that they had to adapt? You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but like the game didn't have pride flags and murals and all that crap in it, as far as I remember. Anyway, it was just like ruins that you were making your way through. So this is new, and like this show hasn't been trapped in development hell for years or anything. Like, this is very much a product of the current day. I mean, it's adapting an older game, but you know, it's even the game was self-aware enough to not have stuff like that like front and center. I guess.
Well, the game did have a 10-minute conversation about somebody's transgender identity. After, like, this was a couple.
Yeah,
of
but the game gave us Fat Geralt as well, so he sorted that one out.
I'm just wondering if that's someone inside of HBO, like a note that was like, you should have more of this, and then they listened.
People are asking for Fat Geralt to appear. It's like, you should be asking for nothing less than his own show at this point.
Fat Geralt, honestly, he did nothing wrong. Like, I want to see that shot of him punching a kid into a garage door. It's beautiful. But yeah, like I as I said at the beginning of this discussion about The Last of Us, like, I am struggling now. Like, it was fun up until Joel dying, where it's like, let's see how bad it can get. Now we know how bad it can get, and it's now just transitioned over into boring. It's just so fucking tedious. I don't care about any of the characters. If Ellie and Dina got murdered in the next episode, I wouldn't care in the slightest.
And you've developed some new demonic, torturous logic of, it's bad enough that we shouldn't keep watching, but it's close enough to the end that we'll finish it through.
That's because I said this to you the other day. If there's only 2 episodes to go, it's like, oh god, should we just power through? Because we could probably do it.
Sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah, well, it's like guys, you know, those guys who are like, 100 yards from the peak of Mount Everest, and they're dying and they're coughing up their lungs and stuff, and they ran out of oxygen about 2 hours ago, but they just have to fucking keep going that's kind of where we're at with this, I think.
One major change they've made from the video game is that in the video game, the zombies are treated as a kind of nuisance, like a background nuisance that no one really thinks about. It's actually quite shocking how absent the zombies are from the story of the video game. In this, that's not so much the case, but they've used them as, instead of a nuisance, the role now is they're a plot device. So, for example, in the obviously I actually really liked the Battle of Jackson. I thought that was a good change because it was
fun.
It was a bit exciting and it was fun. It's like, fuck it, man, this story is too boring. Let's just throw a few hundred zombies at Jackson. Worked for me. But you can see how they're using them as a plot device because in the finger bang episode, they are being chased. Dina and Ellie are being chased by some of the wolves. By the way, in case no one knows, wolf doesn't. I'm not talking about the animal. It's just the name of this group. They're the Seattle Wolves or something. It's like a hockey team. And so they're being chased, and there's 4 or 5 of these wolves after them, and they've got semi-automatic rifles, and the plot needs Ellie and Dina to be rescued, so they just throw a horde of zombies at the wolves, and that's it. But they don't injure Ellie or Dina because the plot doesn't require that. The zombies just are increasingly feeling like a plot device in this season, and because whenever the script needs them to be there, they're there, and when it's not convenient to the script, they're just not there. If Ellie needs to stop and sing "Take on Me" for 5 minutes, no zombies. But if Ellie's in danger, yep, horde of zombies.
It's not consistent.
The latter half of season 1 definitely suffered from that same problem, where it's like they were a big threat at first, and like it gave you the state of the world and so on. And then once they get out into the wilderness, the zombies just they're not really a thing anymore. We don't have to worry about them. Humans are the big thing we need to deal with now. And like there's not much overlap between the two. And yeah, the Battle of Jackson shows that like they are a threat in big numbers, but only when the plot decides that it's time for them to happen, which is it's just lazy and frustrating, really. And it just feeds into this idea that the show is ultimately just a kind of relationship-based melodrama with not particularly likable characters, and the zombies are, as you say, just a backdrop to it. And I don't care about any of the people in it. I don't care if they survive.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You could a horde of zombies could show up and kill them all, and you just wouldn't care. Whereas, we were discussing Andor. You care when major characters in that show die, but in this, like if an asteroid fell on Ellie's potato head, you would just sort of laugh, and that'd be that.
How the hell they get a whole nother 3rd season?
Probably because they're filming back to back. If I have to guess,
just kept going. But I meant just like narratively, what are they going to do? Like.
Well, this is going to take us halfway through the game. So I think it's going to finish with Ellie killing a bunch of the people who were involved in the killing of Joel. And then season 3 is going to switch over to Abby's perspective. And we're going to fill in a lot of the blanks for how she ended up where she was.
That is going to be so boring. Do you know what that's like? Do you know that fucking episode of The Acolyte where it was the same episode twice from a different perspective? It's like that. It's like that, except instead of 1 episode, it's 2 seasons. It's going to be one of the most miserable seasons of television ever made.
Yeah, but it's Neil Druckmann. He's got his creative vision and he has to adhere to it. So you need to accept it, you bigot.
It'll be funny if it does just completely crash and burn in 2 mediums.
Yeah,
have you gotten the fucking idea yet?
What's next? Is he going to release like a graphic novel or something? Like,
what if it was animated? There we go.
Yeah, then it's going to work. Then see, the problem is the first time round, the bigots just couldn't get it because they were too interested in killing zombies. Just a pack of fucking meathead video gamers. What do they know? But when it's a TV show, then people will understand its greatness.
20 years from now, he tries stop motion. This is his last gasp. Like, this has got to be it. People will like
But
this.
I think, MauLer touched on this earlier, and I talked about this in my video recently about it. The big problem you've got is that Ellie and Dina together are not interesting people. They're not interesting characters. They don't have conflicting views. They don't spark off each other in interesting, meaningful ways. They're just 2 asshole teenagers just making their way through this post-apocalyptic world, trading shitty jokes, singing crappy songs, and fucking occasionally. There's nothing to latch onto. There's nothing to find likable. There's nothing compelling about their relationship. And, as much as I think Pedro Pascal is massively overused and probably wasn't the best casting choice for Joel. At least he brought something to the role, and at least having him and Ellie together, it gave you conflicting characters with conflicting viewpoints. It gave you something, an essence of a dramatic arc for the show. Without them, there's nothing. It's boring. It's so fucking boring. I feel like I'm sounding like Az now, and I need to be like shouting and screaming.
Scream,
at
please.
the screen. But yeah, you get the point. Like that, it's the same issue where there's nothing to latch onto now dramatically. There's nothing interesting about these characters.
Yeah, there's also no subplot. I mean, it's just you've got the one plot. It's Dina and Ellie on horseback, going through this very peaceful land, except when the script decides that it's not peaceful because plot armor. And they stumble across record shops, and they stumble across some dead bodies. It's all very boring. They do try for a subplot with the scars, which wasn't really a thing in the game. The scars were more like bullet catchers rather than a subplot in the game, at least as far as I remember from trying to stay awake. But yeah, they've tried to bring the scars into it as a subplot, and it doesn't really seem to be working very well because they've introduced them, but they're not really going anywhere with them.
I think as well, I guess as a relatively modern human being, you're never going to sell like a quasi death worshipping religious cult over like people who essentially represent the forces of law and order and civilization. You're never going to get me to identify with them, and that's what they are.
It's interesting because in the video game, like I said, they don't really go into the why of the scars. Or the background, how did people get like this? That would be an interesting thing to do, to talk about. I read a story the other day, for example, about two parents who were still keeping their kids locked up in their house because of COVID. Like the kids hadn't been outside in 5 years. And COVID had obviously driven these people insane. I think the authorities called it COVID syndrome. So I do think it's a really sad story, man. Like the kids got outside and they touched the grass and they were shocked. I don't want to go into it. It's really sad. But you could do something interesting like that, like examine the psychological effect of the apocalypse on people and examine how it turns a certain percentage of people just go insane. But they don't do that. It's just they ask the audience to take it for granted that these scars are people who cut themselves up and they engage in facial mutilation of their children. And it's like, I can accept that because there is historical precedent for that. Like body mutilation is very commonly practiced in history and even practiced today, I believe, in very barbaric countries like Somalia and the UK. So you could do that. You could do that.
Like Reavers from Firefly, where they're like Oh, okay.
But, similar to that, but in the case of the Reavers, there's actually a lower explanation for how they got like that. The problem, and that's an excellent comparison because Serenity does it right, and that show does it right. Firefly here, they don't explain it. They're just there. There's no lore background as to why these people got like this.
I remember reading World War Z, like the book, not the fucking movie. That's got nothing to do with it. A really good book. But yeah, there's instances in that where they talk about like people who start pretending like they're zombies, and it's like this weird, almost Stockholm syndrome where like people have snapped psychologically. And they see almost like the zombies as winning, and they want to join the winning side, and so they just pretend to be zombies, and they like fall in with the zombie horde, and obviously get eaten immediately. But like they still believe that they can do that because they just want to be left alone. Almost, they want to just be on the winning side, and then that's it. It's over for them, and that's almost like what the scars are psychologically. Like they're kind of like, well, if we mess ourselves up enough, if we are this committed to what we do, we're almost on the same playing field as the infected, and so we don't have to fear them as much anymore. And there's an interesting psychological aspect to it, but the TV show doesn't go into it at all. They're just a religious cult. That's all you get from them. No, sorry. Can I hear anyone?
Yeah.
I was like, I had this weird moment of like, oh shit, have I gone on mute or something?
No.
Well, there's so little to say about the show because it's so empty. It's so fucking empty. It's really boring characters walking around a very just poorly fleshed out bare bones world with zombies appearing only where the script wants them to appear. Very dull enemies. Like here, that's the other thing. No one gives a shit if Dina and Ellie make it and kill these people and succeed in their story of revenge, because the people that did Joel, it's almost like the people that did Joel were HBO and Neil Druckmann. Those are the ones that the audience want to see punished, not this this group led by Abby. But no one cares. There's just nothing to latch on to emotionally. You cannot be emotionally invested in this show.
Yeah. Well, anyway, fuck it. Let's not talk about it anymore.
Watch Mobland.
Yeah, watch Mobland or watch Andor. Indeed.
Yeah.
The only other thing I was going to cover tonight, like, you guys, are you excited for Ironheart when it comes out? Because that's going to be quality
but
viewing.
for all the wrong reasons. Just because this show's been done for like 2 years, and I can't wait to see what Frankenstein monster it comes out as.
It's only a few weeks away now. We're getting pretty close to it. It says that Marvel's, this is from That Park Place, by the way, says Marvel's Ironheart is gearing up for closing out Phase 5 of the MCU on Disney+. The studio appears to be going full damage control mode ahead of the premiere, despite fans still scratching their heads over her inclusion in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Marvel's now rolling out legacy name drops, strategic comparisons, and emotional appeals in a thinly veiled attempt to build hype and legitimacy for a show that few even asked for. It says in a new feature with Empire, Dominic Thorne, who plays Riri Williams, recounted her brief encounter with Robert Downey Jr., describing the interaction as an exciting exchange where the actor gave her a few words of encouragement and literally 2 thumbs up. I
read like a headline that characterized that as like Robert Downey Jr. gave her his blessing as though he's the Pope of Iron Man, and it's just like, that's not going to make me excited for your character.
Don't
your
mess it up.
I just like to imagine they passed each other in a corridor or something, and she was like, "Hey, like Robert, I'm going to be Riri Williams in Ironheart," and he's like, "Yay, great!"
I pictured his wife telling him, "Robert, go message that girl and tell her that she's good." And then he, "Okay, honey," and he gave her the little
gave her thumbs down. That'd have been funny as
fuck. Well, there's an interesting comparison as well that she drew here with Tony Stark. She said that when she talked about Riri Williams as a character, she said that she's dumpster diving, whereas Tony Stark was a bajillionaire. What she is able to accomplish is remarkable. So essentially, she's able to do as much as he did, but with no resources.
But Tony Stark was able to build it in a cave with a bunch of scraps. It's not unique to her character. Her character, as introduced in Wakanda Forever, is just, for a high school science experiment, she can do anything she wants for anyone at any given point. She like build vibranium detectors, build fully functioning, awful looking, shitty, cheap Transformers version of the Iron Man suit.
Yes.
And then we just don't hear about her again until 2025 when she's being shat out onto Disney Plus in the hopes that nobody will notice.
Do you remember the last trailer where the guy in it said that no one like rich basically got there by not stealing something when she's like limiting having to steal parts for the suit? Come on, we know what this is going to be.
You almost want to have it all happen to their generation of creations. For me, like, so after her story is told, I want to come in and have my guy who's he's actually got nothing. He's not like Riri, who's able to dump.
He doesn't have any arms or legs either.
Literally,
he's like Pickle Rick, basically.
He's got like one finger and he's only got a screw. And we leave him alone in a room and we come back and he's got the best Iron Man suit you've ever seen. It's like
all we have left, MauLer.
He had so much to have to fight for. He's not like Riri, who got everything supplied to it. You know, it's like just pull the same thing. And then the next generation, there's like a little rat who makes an Iron Man suit. You're like, he had nothing compared to those 3 others.
I like that.
It's the cheapest, laziest way, though, of trying to build up a character. And I know exactly what they're trying to do with this. It's the same thing they've done with essentially every mainline MCU character when they found a more diverse replacement for them. They basically say, this person was able to do as much as the previous guy, but with fewer resources. So that makes them better. You need to like them more now.
Well, they tried it with Sam Wilson in Captain America 4. Is like, well, you know, Steve Rogers, he was okay as Captain America, but you give people things to aspire to. Unlike Steve Rogers, the fact that you happen to have the most powerful suit in all of existence is neither here nor there, and the fact that you steal everything you've got is also neither here nor there. You're just better because, you know, you're Captain America and it needs to be better. Everything always has to be better. You're the next big thing, so we'll just blow smoke up your ass until it's true.
Was that Falcon and Winter Soldier or the movie? Because I was writing my script for Thunderbolts and I realized that I can't remember the movie despite seeing it 2 months ago.
It was the movie when he turns up in the hospital and like Sam says, because like Sam's like Falcon 2 face plants an ICBM because he's stupid, and then he goes to hospital, and Falcon's like, "Oh, if only I'd taken the super soldier serum like you, Bucky, that wouldn't have happened," which makes no fucking sense. And then Bucky says, "No, because you're actually amazing just as you are," and you know. I'm not going to mention the fact that I didn't take the super soldier serum. I was forced to have it. You don't need it. You know, Steve Rogers, he was just good, but you give people something to believe in. So good for you.
Whereas Steve Rogers didn't give people anything to believe in. You know,
He's famously the most boring. No one cared about him.
What did they say? Like he gave them something to aspire to, and you give them something to believe in.
It's something like
what
that.
distinction are you trying to draw even here? Like, it's just like, do we
logic.
just have to give vague platitudes to everyone?
They're retarded logic drinkers that no matter what you do, you can't get to Steve's position because you don't have the super serum. However, you can get to Falcon's position. When I think the reverse would be argued, because you can get stronger and faster with training, but you can't get a vibranium fucking Iron Man suit free of charge provided by a crazy Wakandan state that hates the whole world in terms of like resource management.
But Marvel will never ever criticize them because that's not allowed.
It's like, Steve, not achievable, but Falcon, totally achievable. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? No,
there's a story to be drawn from that of a guy who like can't possibly measure up to Steve and who's not as strong, not as fast, all the rest of it, but who gets through just through sheer fucking refusal to give up, just determination, and takes an absolute beating in the process. You could do something with that.
John Walker did nothing wrong, and holy hell, the super soldier serum should be a requirement for being Captain America, bare minimum.
Well, there's enough of it around that you think you could give it to all of the candidates at this point. But it's also doubly funny that, you know, post-credit scene in Thunderbolts, by the way, aren't we so bad, has Sam Wilson, who's just been complaining about, you know, how in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, evil capitalism keeps the poor man down. And then in Brave New World, it's, well, you know, you give people something to aspire to because people can, you know, be just like you. And then you get to Thunderbolts and he sues you for copyright infringement if you try to be a hero.
Yeah.
He's just a dick. And so, but it's how interesting Ironheart is that we're talking about a completely different character. But it's kind of the same, kind of the same problem, right? It's just going to be another completely shallow, empty vessel character, and they will keep telling us how awesome she is, and we will never ever see it.
Yeah. Well, they'll have the excuses teed up as well, because if anyone criticizes this show, well, we know exactly what will be called and why.
Correct. Like, I am a Luddite. I don't like technology. That's why I'm criticizing it.
Are they going to go with? Are they going to go with sexist or racist? Or
yes.
Racist? Well, but listen. Is it going to be you're a racist sexist or you're a sexist racist? Right? Which one's going to come first?
I think what they need to do is make her gay as well for the Holy Trinity of protection. Because I think there's no reason why they can't do that. So
Ironheart's gay, by the way.
Yeah.
Start a whole thing.
It's like, well, we know there's a reason why, you know, this was made about 2 or 3 years ago and it's been in the can all this time and they just haven't released it. They know they failed with this one. They know it's a product of a different
Armor Wars, right? Armor Wars was supposed to be connected to it, and I think they just bailed on that.
They canned that one completely, didn't they? So that will never ever come out. But this one is, and I don't. So she presumably is coming back in Avengers Doomsday, because why bother releasing this if she's not? But then if it was all made 2 years ago, does that mean that it's set back in time before a bunch of recent stuff, or have they updated it, or what? I mean, where is the story set?
Who cares?
Who knows? Yeah. Do you say Doomsday is going to be 2028? Is when they say it's taking place?
My understanding of it as well is like it's not because of any like you know, future tie-ins or anything like that. They're literally releasing this because contractually they couldn't get out of it.
Oh,
that's all it is. They would have to pay too many penalties to all the different actors involved and their agents and all that stuff, and they have to do it essentially. And they're probably going to shart it out onto Disney Plus all in one go. Get it out as quickly as possible, and hopefully people won't notice, they won't promote it, and they'll just forget about it.
To be fair, that's what happened with Velma Season 2. I mean, I know that was over on HBO Max, or Max as it's now called. They dropped the trailer the day before release date. They shouted it all out, just got it out there on Max in one day, and nobody noticed it. It actually worked for Velma Season 2. They were able to just quietly bury it under the carpet, and that was it. So it might work for Disney.
Yeah, it's also diminishing returns of people showing up to hear you talk shit on it.
Yeah, although to be fair,
already checked out.
Yeah, people were done with Velma, whereas with Ironheart, I think people will be interested to see just how bad it is. There will be that morbid curiosity. You know, people want to examine the corpse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Should we do a few super chats before we finish up this day? See if we can answer some questions.
Please.
All right, here's one. Joey Foltz says, hated Last of Us Season 1. Not sure why MauLer still likes it. Yeah, MauLer, what's your
we went
problem?
over it extensively. There's loads of really strong writing in it. There's some decent performances. It adapts the game more faithfully than fucking 99.9% of adaptations that have ever existed. I've got some respect for how they managed to maintain a whole bunch of stuff. That I could tell it was going to work, obviously, taking material like that, because I watched the first episode with my family, and holy shit, you know, when you know, all of it happens, the prologue, they were all fucking like taken with it completely. And I was like, yeah, this shit works. If you just, all they had to do was follow the script, which to me, I thought maybe stupidly that would give some credence to games being taken more seriously. I don't know about that right now. Minecraft has sort of dashed any hope. Like,
yeah. Well, it depends on the game. It's like not exactly mature storytelling in Minecraft.
Yeah, true. We'll see how it all rolls out. But I feel like games have the comics fate, you know. Not that comics are done getting ravaged. It's just that games are next up, it feels.
Hail to the bar. Just wondering if you've seen the comedy Four Lions. Love this type of humor in comedies. Yes, I have seen it. It's an absolutely fantastic movie. Great satire on like the whole like process of I guess radicalizing guys. It's essentially, how can I put this? It's like a bunch of Islamic extremists who plan an attack, but they're complete incompetent retards, and like half of them don't really believe even in what they're doing, and it's the mindset behind it.
And this is a comedy, not a documentary, because it sounds sort of.
It's weird because the way I'm describing it does not sound funny in the slightest.
Yeah, no,
it is really fucking good, and the performances from everyone involved are excellent. So yeah, they copped a lot of flack back in the day when they made it, but man, history has just proven how correct it was, and I think the guys involved said, like, you know, this is the sort of thing that deserves mockery. Like, this is how you twist religious faith. It's how you,
and that is brave, because that will actually get you hurt.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, it's a very good movie, so I do recommend it. What's the next one? IDW is making a prequel to Event Horizon. Thoughts? What the fuck? Why? No, don't.
Like,
but
comic,
it hasn't been
obviously
ravaged yet. Everything has to be destroyed, Trinker. Everything. Just
I mean,
accept it.
I was going to say, like, you can't really rape Event Horizon because Event Horizon rapes you. Like, it's that kind of movie.
If you show what actually happens to them when they're in the portal, that might be extremely graphic, but interesting.
I mean, sure. I want the director's cut, which is never going to happen, obviously, because they've lost all the original footage. But I want the original cut that they showed to the executives at the studio, because apparently I had people fainting and throwing up and stuff. So I want that version of Event Horizon. Sadly, we'll never get to see it. The next one is Jimmy Chungus, who says that Mon Mothma is one of the best Star Wars characters, which I think is fair.
Yeah, I think they've
particularly from
done an amazing job fleshing her out. Yeah,
that actress has played it in the prequel trilogy, the cartoons, and Disney Plus live action Genevieve. So yeah,
she is good.
All that she got cast as Mon Mothma in a scene that ended up deleted from Revenge of the Sith. That's where
we talked about it behind the scenes, but yeah, it was the delegation of 2000 that had the senator from Gorman. That even back then they were wary of Palpatine. So yeah.
I wonder if she ever would have thought that deleted scene casting ever ended up getting her a full TV show role that was this involved. Especially one scene we didn't mention that I loved, we kind of talked around it, was her and Luthen discussing what the plan is, so to speak, and her realizing that she ticks all of the boxes for being worth assassinating from Luthen's position.
Oh,
like
yeah,
the way she acts that scene is incredible. Like, you can see her getting more and more terrified, realizing that he could have her killed at any moment.
It is pretty fucking good. Yeah, that, because we obviously focused quite a bit on episode 8, but episode 9 has got some excellent moments. It's much more character driven, but yeah, great intention building and great and like really stressing who each person is and what they're worth and what they believe in.
What's part of what makes that scene so awesome? There's tension for getting out of Coruscant, but there's also just whether she has to choose who she's trusting, right? Like the team from Bale or the team from Luthen, and Andor giving her all these pieces of information, and her being like, "You could have learned that from this. You could have been doing that from here," and he's just like, "Fucking hell, I have to convince you? Like, we're already worried about dying here."
Well, yeah, I mean, but everyone's constantly thinking, and that's nice
Yeah.
to see in a TV show. I like that. Jeremy Soden says, "Damn it, signed up for Disney Plus so that I can watch Andor season 2 before the EFAP, canceling it as soon as I've finished it." I mean, you can always, yar me mateys. There's always options.
It is amusing when people are like, "I'm not gonna fucking pay Disney to watch this," and you're like, "Okay." Like, if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Did they still do that thing where if you cancel a subscription, they say, please tell us why? Because you could just say, I only subscribed for Andor and now I'm done. And if enough people do it, they might notice. Like,
Maybe,
lots of people came and they really liked that show. And maybe we should do that again.
I don't know if I mentioned it on the last open bar, but the comment that I still think about because it makes me laugh so much. Someone's saying, I went and saw Revenge of the Sith in the theater as a fuck you to Disney.
That will show them.
It's so funny.
Well, I get that in the sense that like their modern shit doesn't make any money, but the 20-year-old one from Lucas actually makes money, just the same way that their toys from Legends are the only stuff that sells. But yeah, it is.
I mean, sure, like it goes to him, but like they will at least make note of the revenue stream and where it came from. So maybe that means something.
This might encourage. I mean, I don't think this is probably impossible because I think that George Lucas insisted on this when he sold it to them. But imagine how much money they could make if they just did the original trilogy remastered, despecialized, not the George Lucas did later on. Like that would make a fucking ton if they did that. Release that in cinemas. I'd go to see it.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sure they will once it gets to the anniversaries again. If this taught them anything, right? Because they're certainly re-releasing all the old
I don't think
comic
George
books.
Lucas will let them, because I imagine that was probably in the contract when he signed it over to Disney, like because he considers the bastardized versions that he did in the 90s to be the definitive versions. And my God, if you watch those today, it is so bad. It's dated so badly. Like it looks like something I would do on my little YouTube video editor, like just layering in animals. It's awful.
It's the dialogue and stuff additions that I fucking hate. It's the Darth Vader going no, and picking up Palpatine like
that one hurts.
That is so insulting and it's so frustrating. That scene was perfect before. Perfect. You couldn't do any better.
Someone in the chat was like, if swearing exists in Star Wars, why didn't Palpatine say fuck when he was being thrown down the
fuck yeah!
Fuck Vader!
Imagine just what the fuck, Vader?
Still the Buster says so many miscasts for The Last of Us. We all know Kaylee Speeney would have been the near perfect cast choice for Ellie. Yep. But ever wonder who would have been the best for Abby? Look no further than Mia Lesnar. She is terrifying.
Oh, bro, yeah, that looks like a young Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, it's like if you shaved his beard off and put a wig on him, that's Brock Lesnar right there. I don't want to see that. But yeah, like I think there's a middle ground, like where you've got believability, but also like an actress who looks just fairly lean and mean. Like I said before, like if you had someone who looked a bit like Linda Hamilton from Terminator 2, okay, so not like crazy muscular or anything, but like just very athletic, very dangerous looking, that probably would have worked well, I think. And it would have been a contrast for Ellie. But never mind. Dork Ritual says, oh no, we did that one about Cyril and his character arc, so that's fair enough. Methalus says, MauLer, I love you. Also, tell us to watch Mobland already. I watched 6 episodes in 2 days just to hear you guys talk about it.
Bro, we've told him every episode of Real BBC. Me and Gary started to lose hope that he ever will. But it's fun to talk about a show weekly as it comes out that's really good. It's just I'm not seeing enough. I don't think there's enough hype around it for people to spread it in time, I guess. But I'm telling everybody, watch Mobland. It's very entertaining.
Is he waiting for it to all come out before because he doesn't want to get hurt?
No, he said every week that he will. He's just like, come on. He's just like Drinker.
I said I would watch it, and it's like, yeah, what can I say? I will watch it as soon as I've got the time, MauLer.
He seemed outraged, but then he just confirmed what I said.
Yeah, I was like, that ain't me. Oh fuck, that's exactly me. Yeah, shit. Uncle Sam says, I love Andor. This is what can be done with competent people at the helm. If only all Star Wars projects from the last decade could be this good. Imagine it. Just imagine it for a second. And we were living in some wonderful utopia where Disney had done no wrong with Star Wars. They just like hit after hit, knocking it out of the park.
I think that's
That'd
where a
be
lot
nice.
of the resentment comes from. It certainly comes from me, where it's like, man, I wish that the other projects had been treated with that level of respect, and the little in jokes and canon that I noticed in the background of like Luthens. It's like, bro, that's from some obscure and like, I just wish that had been done across the board.
That would have been nice. Next one is Starbug Smeg says, Andor's brilliance feels bittersweet. The feeling that I won't be seeing this level of writing, acting, and maturity in Star Wars again for a long, long time.
Yeah, The Mandalorian and Grogu comes out next year. It could be really good.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Aren't you looking forward to that guy?
I want to see that. I hope if Grogu doesn't die in that fucking movie, I'm gonna riot. I hate that shit.
Mandalorian season 3 remains for me one of the worst seasons of television I've ever seen.
It is quite bad.
Unbelievably boring.
I'm so happy I didn't watch it.
How dare you? Jack Black and Lizzo saved Star Wars.
Well, that part was good. Yeah.
The best fight scene ever, where literally the stunt director or coordinator just took the puppet of Grogu and threw him across the top, and that was supposed to be him force flipping.
Jesus.
It's brilliant.
William Draper says Star Wars comic book universe, yet somehow we're stuck on the same characters. How is so much content still revolving around Skywalker for everything? Because he's recognizable. The Skywalker name is recognizable. Just like we're going to see the Millennium Falcon in everything, and it's just all stuff that people remember. Snex says, anyone looking for a new TTRPG, I recommend Under a Hostile Sun, a D&D-esque game with a focus on space exploration, resource gathering, and problem solving. No woke Wizards of the Coast, just up-and-coming developer trying to make a fun game. Thanks for listening. You guys heard of that at all?
No.
Under a Hostile Sun, apparently. Okay.
I've still got Oblivion remastered, and after that, Claire Expedition 33 that everyone loves.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that. Is it a survival horror? Am I...
Expedition? It's based on JRPG, but it's French, and it's like the turn-based is contextual buttons, so it's a little more action. I think Az is streaming it right now.
Probably, yeah.
Streaming a lot of it, yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm hearing it's really good. Really, really good. So
yeah. Luno Star says Dave Filoni reminds me of Frederick Usher. Sounds exactly the same, and I'd bet that they're a lot alike. Is that like from the House of Usher?
Wait, sorry, what did they say?
Dave Filoni reminds me of Frederick Usher. Sounds exactly the same, and I'd say that they're a lot alike. Sorry, alike.
Is that his name? I forget. I haven't seen House of Usher in ages. Or is that someone else? They don't recognize. Oh, he's the son.
Right.
He's the one
played by the guy from E.T.
Yeah. Okay,
right. Yeah. That's an interesting comparison, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Rossi says hashtag Palpatine poop propaganda. Well, there you go, right there.
Exactly.
Emotionally unstable amphibian says, Drinker, your hair and beard make it look like Simple Jack and Gary Beekler had a secret love child. What the fuck?
Shout out Simple Jack.
Slight revelation. I got out of the shower and didn't have time to put product in my hair. That's why it's like flat or something. So
trying something new.
What can I say? Yeah, I didn't have time to like spike it up and stuff. Riley Hill says, why does everyone in the last season of Last of Us look and act like it's not 25 years post-apocalypse? They should all be very cautious and look homeless. Well, I mean, I guess the characters that we see in season 2, they're living in Jackson, and so they're relatively prosperous. And so it's kind of like a functioning community, isn't it? They at least have...
Yeah.
They're well fed and so on. I would imagine their clothes would look pretty fucked up by this point because they don't really have the ability to make new clothing items. So, like, just jackets and trousers and stuff like that would all be pretty ragged by this point. So, yeah, that's where it's a little bit unbelievable. But Dork Ritual says, also, can we get some Fs in the chat for Cyril's mom? She is the reason that he's such a son of a, well, you know. I mean, yeah, she does her job well.
I hope we see her again, some capacity.
She's going to become a TIE fighter. No, sorry, an X-Wing pilot or something, isn't she? I just know.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Stay on target.
Yeah. Where to Wander says, my God, it's nice to hear the panel talk about something with passion and gratitude, especially about something I really like. Cheers, gents, and cheers to Andor.
Cheers.
Awesome. It was nice. That's the thing. Like, we spent an hour and a half talking about a show for once that we just really enjoyed. And that's the difference. I feel like if it had been something we hated, we would have moved past it after like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But
and could have talked longer, by the way, but I realized the chat was starting to riot. But like the inclusion of the Force Healer and all of that other stuff, it's a lot. There's a lot there to go through.
Well, it's nice to just remind people of like, hey, we would much rather talk about things that are really fucking good and that we really enjoyed than just slop garbage. But you know, that's where we find ourselves with all the big franchises for the most part. But Andor was a nice little change of pace, so it was nice to be able to actually promote something that we enjoyed.
It's also psychologically necessary because due to the YouTube algorithm, the fact is that the negative content sells better than the positive stuff. But if you're doing a lot of negative content talking about, this show's shit and that thing's horrible, you occasionally do have to do something positive just for the sake of your own sanity, rather than just be examining garbage all day.
It's tiring.
Yeah. You just need to remind yourself, like, oh, right, this is actually why I talk about movies, because when they're at their best, man, they could be fucking incredible experiences that can change
We want to
your whole
like
outlook.
things. I want to like things. I don't want to watch things and be bored or not like it or be outraged because they said a fucking word. I want to like things.
Yeah. Next up is AJM says, Aurora Borealis at this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen. St. Chalmers Simpsons. Well, I mean,
I see it. No.
Yeah, no.
Steamed hams.
Yeah. Oh man, that sequence was amazing. It's when the house is burning down. It's like mom's in the upper room, like, Seymour, help!
Is
everything okay there? Yeah, everything's fine. It's just mother.
No, mother, just the northern lights.
Yeah. Intent Matters says, with Andor being so... Oh, sorry, we did that one already, talking about the Jedi appearing. 4 Knots to Nowhere says, yes, the planet had a really French feel to it, not just a collection of diverse people that talk funny. I mean...
That's the first thing I noticed when we were looking at Gorman. I was like, oh my God, it actually looks like a location. It looks like an ethnic people with a clear identity, as opposed to the set of Rings of Power or just insert fantasy series here, because they all look exactly the same now. And that's the criticism we were making. And if you go to a fantasy series, everywhere it's the same. But here, Gorman actually looks like a place that has been settled by a specific people and has an ethnic identity.
Yeah.
And it works really well.
Like in The Witcher, you cannot, in the game you can, but in The Witcher, the show, you cannot tell where you are based on the environment.
You can't do that with The Witcher, Rings of Power, or with Wheel of Time, apparently.
Yeah.
They all just have that weird, like, LA metropolitan diversity thing going on where everywhere just looks the same.
But even in LA, like, you'll have the Hispanic district and you'll have the Black district, whereas in those shows, everywhere just looks like a university campus.
Yeah. Because everyone has to live together in harmony, Despot, don't you understand? That's the way humans are. Next one, Kim Husby says, are you guys familiar with the YouTube channel The Closer Look? That guy's written an absolutely gripping video essay on The Last of Us Part 2. Anyone familiar with him?
I think he's... Yeah, I follow him. I think he's great. He did a really good video on Joker 2, just examining why it's such a bad musical. A bad movie as well, but mostly the musical elements of it. And he did a fantastic video on The Last of Us Part 2. He's a bit more normie than what most of us would be, but he's really good. Check him out.
I want to say as well, just like while you're on, the video that you made about the British advertising standards or like the tropes that they include in it. Absolutely fucking brilliant. Like that was like the depth of research that you must have had to put into that one, and the shite that you must have had to troll through to be able to make it. I mean, hats off to you. I could not have put up with that.
Yeah, thanks very much, man. That was actually so depressing and it was genuinely depressing. Like there's like pro-suicide ads and things like that. It was such a horrible experience having to look through all those ads that I did a train spotting video after just to like recover from it a little bit.
A train spotting video, good.
Yeah, just because I thought, fuck
train spotting is uplifting compared
nice
to that.
And bright storytelling.
It absolutely is. A story featuring a dead baby and a bunch of heroin junkies is bliss compared to British ads.
Yeah.
My favorite one actually was the one from the Scottish government, where it's Scottish people attacking like a smorgasbord of intersectionality. So Scottish people attack a guy in a wheelchair and like an old trans man or trans woman or something. And it's basically just, Scottish people are terrible and we should hate them. And that's it.
Well, I mean, all of those things are true, to be fair. But yeah, I don't want to hear it in an advert, though. M8566 gifted 5 critical drinker memberships. So thank you, my friend. McGee says Star Wars giving us Andor is not like this is like not beating your wife on her birthday. It doesn't make up for the years of abuse. Maybe I'll still watch it. I think that's it kind of encapsulates the problem that Star Wars has now. If they produce something good, people won't watch it because they're so soured on the brand, they're so soured on Disney that they won't give anything a shot.
But just enjoy not getting hit for the moment.
Sure, yeah. Because like I'm in a good mood right now. I'm not going to hit you, but like who knows what could happen later in the night when I get a half bottle of whiskey in me. Next one.
Talk about vergences in the Force and chanting again.
Yeah, I'm just trying to go through the member critical drinker member chats here, just so I don't miss any of them because they get erased like after we've finished this. Loon Star says Dave Filoni reminds me of Frederick Usher. Oh yeah, we did that one. No problem. The next one is where are you? Yeah, Jesus De Villa gifted a critical drinker membership, so thank you very much. Yeah, James Moore, 10,000 Jedi at the time of Order 66. Even if 99% are killed, that's 100 Jedi that are left. The problem is every survivor introduced is boring as hell, and it isn't Vader killing them. Vader should be the one hunting the Jedi.
Correct. Because you have 10 or 15 years of him hunting down Jedi.
Because he did in the expanded universe, didn't he? Like he led the hunt for the Jedi very much.
Legends and Disney canon have him hunting down Jedi for at least 10 to 15 years. He's got the Inquisitors getting the light ones, and he goes after the bigger, more powerful ones, which written eloquently would be a really good series showing Anakin and Vader's cope and hunting all the Jedi. And if you did it like the originals, each Jedi would be different. Some are more psychological, some are more powerful in the Force, things like that.
They're like bosses in a video game, yeah.
But you could also have contextual flashbacks and go through. You could just do a lot there if you tried.
Yeah. Kevin O'Neill, my question that goes back to the prequel still stands. How hard is it to recreate the magic of the OT, space adventures with minimal wizardry? Question for the whole panel, really.
Is he talking about the lightning in a bottle effect? Because you can't recreate that. That just, if it happens, it happens. But you would, with regard to the OT, if I were in Disney, I would never try to recreate that magic because, like I say, it's like trying to capture lightning in a bottle. It's futile. Just do the best you can, write the best thing you can write. And if it does happen to take off and have that magic, that's great. But it's not something I don't think you can create that deliberately.
I mean, like culturally, is cinema just not in a place where that could exist now? That sense of like wonder and adventure and like novelty that you got with the original Star Wars movies, like
point
you
of
can't
view
really
characters.
replicate that now because we're living in a world that's 40 years removed from that.
I think you could, because imagine this: what if Barbie was a masterpiece and not shit? Do you know what I mean? Because there was that big cultural moment where tons of people were going to see it. Unfortunately, it was a shit movie. But if it had been brilliant, that would have been absolutely magical. Do you know what I mean?
Well, what if Rebel Moon had been magical?
Yes.
Because that had pretensions to be the next Star Wars. It obviously like wanted to do that. It just
This could be the Ryan Gosling movie, by the way, where it's 5 years after the shit, and he's where the Starfighter, where it's supposedly him and his 15-year-old nephew. If you just show the wider galaxy through the nephew and the more grizzled uncle, I don't know the story details, but like you could maybe capture some of that wide-eyed, bigger galaxy.
well, I guess
feeling.
I guess the point I'm driving at here, though, is like even if you do that and you recapture some like facsimile of the sense of adventure that you got with the original Star Wars movies, it's still not the same magic because ultimately, like we've seen all of the permutations of this a million times before. Like you can't replicate that sense of wonder and novelty that you got back then because it's all of this stuff has been done.
The counter argument might be, though, that Star Wars was built on things that had already been done several times over. The whole Joseph Campbell flirtation, the going back to the hero's journey, the very different references and inspirations George Lucas took. The story of Star Wars works, though, precisely because it's not actually new. It works because it is a new setting for a very old type of story. And that story type is common and it recurs in so many different ways in different cultures with different settings because that type of story is the thing that resonates. And we just don't really have that because it is much more a character story than it is a story about anything else. Without Luke Skywalker, there is no magic in Star Wars. There's just a very, very interesting, technically proficient science fiction movie, but it doesn't contain the same magic because the character who goes through that story doesn't exist. One of the problems with the sequel trilogy is that you don't have a Luke Skywalker, you have a cardboard cutout character. And so who are we really invested in? We're not going along for that ride. We're just watching other people go through it. So in a sense, Despot's right. Don't try and recapture the magic, but you can definitely look to why that was magical to begin with, and just try and replicate the same process.
Robert Meyer Burnett talks about all the time where you got to start. Genre needs to return. So like look to the classical truths like George did, and then the classical story elements because Star Wars could have. They even talked about it. Gilroy was going to have a horror episode with K2SO where they're going to be stuck in a ship with him, but they, for budget reasons, had to cut it. You can tell different genre inside of Star Wars. And just like George pulled from Flash Gordon and samurai movies, you could also pull from other elements and tell a story with the Star Wars skin, and it would be great. That's what the expanded universe was a bunch of different genre expanded out through 30,000 years worth of Star Wars timeline.
It was quite amazing how well Revenge of the Sith, and I know that's a point you made in your video, Drinker. Like, wow, it's not as dead as we all thought. There really is a lot of love for this franchise not even when it was at its best, just when it was a little bit exciting, when people still wanted to see it, and when it was Star Wars. And it sort of makes you think maybe there are. I don't think that I'm not going to be optimistic about Disney Star Wars, but if maybe Disney sold it to someone sane and they rebooted it, there could be some goodwill there. Perhaps the brand damage isn't as total as we thought.
I wonder if the success of Revenge of the Sith is actually due to how shit Star Wars is now, and it's almost like people are just desperate to go back to a happier time.
I think that's what it was.
Nostalgia becomes like super enticing at that point because the world that we live in now is so horrible.
And the new generation that never saw it.
The new generation that never saw it, but also the generation that was kids when it came out. Like, I was a kid when that film came out, so to get to go to see it at the cinema as an adult is kind of nostalgic, but it's also an opportunity, in a sense, to see it again for the first time, which is always going to be appealing to people, I think. But you're not going to be able to recreate that or escape the brand damage of Disney Star Wars, I don't think, if your next slate of projects includes like the Starfighter thing set 5 years after The Rise of Skywalker, the Rey movie, which is a direct continuation of The Rise of Skywalker, and whatever else comes after that, which all of these are kind of doubly insulting because we skipped 30 years of really good storytelling to get The Force Awakens. And now we're exploring the 5-year period after The Rise of Skywalker. Why are we doing that? No one wants that. It's a horrible movie and a horrible time that no one wants to be reminded of.
Most of those movies are never going to happen anyway. The Rey movie, do you really think that's going to happen?
The Simon Kinberg trilogy, to your point, Platoon, they screwed themselves because if they do, like, I would love to see a Sebastian Stan as Luke Skywalker build the Jedi Order, but then I know it gets destroyed by Snoke, and all roads do lead to Jake, which makes people not want to see that 30 years, because what does it matter if it's just going to get you know what I'm saying?
Is there some way we can use the world between worlds to swap out into a different timeline and
just
never happen?
Just once, MauLer. Just once, and then we'll
Yes.
wake up with Luke Skywalker, and it was all a bad
like-
dream.
See, everyone, retards like Dave Filoni actually can serve a useful purpose to undo all the shit that they've
Just
created.
give me one free
up until
one,
now.
please.
How much do you
Yeah.
want to bet we get a flickering Vader in Ahsoka season 2?
Oh god, yeah.
And Grace Randolph will just lose her shit over it.
Vader.
Evader. Anyway, I'm going to finish up there for this evening. My panel of lovely guests, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's been awesome to have all of you on for this. And for everyone that's joined us tonight, appreciate you guys. And any super chats that we've missed, obviously we will, as always, catch up on them, as MauLer and I always do on Last Orders. But yeah, thank you for being so generous to send so many of them this evening. And hopefully we kept you entertained for an hour or two. And that is all we've got for today. So go away now.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay Gucci.